Chapter 3741. This ice storm attack is really powerful. Fortunately, my physical body is incomparably strong. I also have a powerful divine core in my body. Ling Xiao was incomparably glad that he had entered the Ghost Demon Palace back then. If he had not entered the Ghost Demon Palace, he would not have been so lucky today. Even if his physical body was not destroyed, his inner core would have been shattered. At that time, even if he did not die, his cultivation would be completely crippled. At that time, wouldn't he be at Niafeng's mercy? How could an ignorant brat like you understand the difference between the copper core stage and the iron core stage? Pitiful guy, just die in this endless ice bloodstorm. Seeing Ling Xiao wrapped in the ice bloodstorm, Niafeng let out a hysterical roar. This was already his most powerful attack. He did not believe that it could not harm Ling Xiao. Even if the other party's physical body was not destroyed, his inner core would be shattered. Because he could not see Ling Xiao, Niafeng looked at his crystal ball. There was Ling Xiao's portrait on it. As long as Ling Xiao died, that portrait would immediately turn gray and be marked with a blood-red X. Tyrannical martial spirit, devour! At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in the ice bloodstorm. That terrifying ice bloodstorm actually completely disappeared in an instant. In the pitch-black universe, it was as if there was a giant beast entrenched there, opening its mouth and burping. This scene scared Niafeng so much that he almost collapsed in an instant. His most powerful attack was actually so easily broken by the other party. He could not accept it. Absolutely could not accept it. Pitiful person, my physical body is now a high-grade third-order Emperor stage. My inner core is far more powerful than you can imagine. With your attack, it's impossible to hurt me. It's over. I'll send you on your last journey. Tyrannical 10 swords in one. In the boundless universe, 10 sword lights glided past like 10 comets. Then they condensed together. With a heavy pressure, they pounced toward Niafeng. In Niafeng's eyes, they did not look like 10 swords. Instead, they looked more like 10 stars that resembled swords. Each star had enough power to destroy him. How can this be? How can this be? I don't believe it. I can't accept it. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Copper core, explode for me. Niafeng seemed to have seen his own death and knew that it was impossible for him to win. Therefore, he was prepared to use the last resort. Even if he had to risk his life, he would never admit defeat in front of Ling Xiao. At worst, they would just perish together. The copper elixir in his body was released. It was extremely dazzling in the space. Ha ha ha, die. My copper core is perfect, and once it explodes, even a 4th-level divine core warrior will be severely injured. Any warrior below the 4th level of the divine core realm would die without a doubt. I don't care what monster you are. All of them must die today. We must. Exploding his inner core was the final trump card of a divine core warrior. If he confirmed that there was no hope left, they would rather perish together with their opponents than surrender. This Niafeng could be considered a man. It was a pity. Since Ling Xiao had broken through to the divine core realm, there was no way he wouldn't study how a divine core exploded. During his research, he discovered something interesting. A stronger inner core would not be afraid of the exploding of a lower-level inner core. It could even absorb the energy from the exploding inner core. Facing the exploding copper core, a silver core could absorb about 10% of the energy, but it would still be severely injured. A gold core could absorb about 20% of the energy, but it would still be slightly injured. A mortal core could absorb more than 90% of the energy, and it wouldn't be injured at all. Niafeng was sure that Ling Xiao didn't have a gold core, and it was impossible for him to have a mortal core. But he never expected that Ling Xiao had a divine core that was much stronger than all of these. It was a core that only warriors at the extreme realm of core could possess. Niafeng didn't withdraw his attack. Ling Xiao just opened his mouth and released the divine core from his body. In an instant, Nie Feng's hair stood on end. It was as if he had just seen a ghost, and his face was filled with despair and disbelief. He had decided to perish together with Jiang Qin. He had exploded his inner core, and he thought he would be able to bring Ling Xiao with him. But who would have thought that Ling Xiao would release a divine core? Why? I can't accept it. Boom! The copper core exploded. But before its power could spread, it was completely absorbed by the divine core. Then, the divine core flew back into Ling Xiao's body. Then, the 10 swords merged into one and hit Nie Feng, who had already lost his core. At this moment, Nie Feng couldn't defend himself except for his physical body. In that instant, his eyes widened. His face was filled with disbelief. His body was completely destroyed by the sword light. When he died, he didn't even have time to scream. Nie Feng was killed, and the effect of the dragon trapping talisman finally disappeared. Ling Xiao picked up the storage ring on the ground and smiled coldly. What do you mean by the evils you bring on yourself are the hardest to bear? This is it. Nie Feng's death came from Nie Shuang's death. Speaking of which, these 2 siblings were just Yu Qilong's pawns. They were also somewhat pitiful, but a pitiful person must have a hateful side. They were willing to be used by Yu Qilong, and they both wanted to kill Ling Xiao. So, Ling Xiao could only kill them. He withdrew the tyrant martial spirit. Ling Xiao let out a long breath. He really relied on the tyrant martial spirit in this battle. Otherwise, with his strength, it would be too difficult to defeat Nie Feng. There are only spirit stones and talismans. After opening Nie Feng's storage ring and taking a look, Ling Xiao was greatly disappointed. This guy's storage ring only had about 20,000 high-grade spirit stones, as well as about 10 one-time used talismans. He guessed that the Yu clan knew that it would be very dangerous to enter the burial ground. Therefore, he had basically emptied the storage ring of all its contents. Of course, there was another possibility. The storage ring's space was limited, so they prepared to make room for other things. Regardless of which possibility it was, the reality was that there weren't many things in the storage ring. Fortunately, spirit stones were indispensable to Ling Xiao. As for the 10 or so talismans, they were divided into 3 types. One was the dragon trapping talisman, which could be used to trap enemies. One was the defensive talisman, which could be used to defend against attacks. One was the body securing talisman, which could be used to restrain enemies. There were 4 defensive talismans and body securing talismans, and 2 dragon trapping talismans. All the talismans were divine emperor weapons, and they weren't very effective against warriors above the 3rd divine core realm. However, they were very effective against warriors below the 3rd divine core realm. Perhaps the reason why Nie Feng didn't use these talismans was because he believed that Ling Xiao could easily kill Ling Xiao. Therefore, he had only used 1 dragon trapping talisman. Ling Xiao was the one who got the advantage. Although these talismans weren't very effective against warriors above the 3rd divine core realm, they weren't completely useless. At a critical moment, these talismans could still be of great use. After all, in a battle between great warriors, the difference between their strengths was just a tiny bit. Chapter 3742. After tidying up the storage ring, Ling Xiao threw a glance at the crystal ball. Nie Feng's portrait had turned gray, and a blood-red X had appeared on top of it. Currently, the number of deaths had reached 10. Among these 10, only 2 were killed by Ling Xiao. However, none of the men Ling Xiao killed were weak, and his slaughter points had increased to 44. There are only 50 men left. The number of people is decreasing too quickly. Ling Xiao furrowed his brows. It seemed like it was just as he had expected. Some of them were crazily hunting down their own kind. In order to obtain the last inheritance of the Blood Sword Supreme, there was even a possibility of them killing each other. Oh, Blood Sword Supreme, you are indeed famous for killing. This trial was too cruel. Brother Ling Shao, let me out. Is it over? Zilong's voice came from the beast ring. Only now did Ling Shao remember that he had blocked the beast ring, so Zilong couldn't see what was happening outside. But he could still feel the terrifying aura. Perhaps Zilong had suddenly noticed that the battle had stopped, and that was why he was anxiously asking about the situation. Ling Shao let him out. Then with a smile on his face, he said, "The battle is over. Niafeng has received his just deserts." Zilong stared at Niafeng's tattered corpse with a dumbfounded expression. He couldn't believe his own eyes. "Am I seeing things, Brother Ling Shao? You really killed him. Oh heavens, Brother Ling Shao. You've been hiding your true strength all this time. You're so strong." "You can say that." Ling Shao was too lazy to explain, because the more he explained, the more troublesome it would be. Since Zilong thought he was hiding his true strength, then he would just pretend he was hiding it. "I was worried that something might happen to you, Brother Ling Shao. After all, the trial in this evil ghost labyrinth is too cruel. But now, as long as you don't meet any warriors above the 4th divine core realm, you should be fine." Zilong let out a sigh of relief. Since Ling Shao was able to conceal himself, it shouldn't be a problem for him to survive until the end of this trial. And, after killing Niafeng, I now know the limit of my current strength. As long as he didn't encounter any warriors above the 4th level of the divine core realm, or as long as I'm not surrounded by 3rd divine core warriors, I'll be fine. Ling Shao nodded. At the same time, somewhere in the demon labyrinth, Yu Qilong had just killed a wraith when he suddenly noticed that the number on the crystal ball had become smaller. Another person's avatar turned gray. Niafeng? How could it be him? Yu Qilong was very shocked. Yu Hua and Zi Qinya were the strongest in the Yu clan and the Zi clan. Next up were 4 5th divine core warriors, 3 from the Yu clan and 2 from the Zi clan. Then there were the 8 4th divine core warriors, 5 from the Yu clan and 3 from the Zi clan. As for the peak 3rd divine core warriors, there were 7 from the Yu family and only 3 from the Zi family. There were only 10 of them. Originally, Yu Qilong thought that these 24 people would definitely stay until the end. But who would have thought that in just a dozen minutes, Niafeng, a man who stood at the pinnacle of all 3rd heavenly core warriors, would actually die? Who killed him? Zi Qinya? Or was it Indigo? Or was it a mighty warrior from the Zi family? No matter how hard he thought about it, he couldn't think of any possibility that it was Ling Shao. In his eyes, Ling Shao was indeed an extremely talented warrior, but how could a 2nd divine core warrior kill a peak 3rd divine core warrior? Even if he was beaten to death, he still wouldn't believe it. On the other side, Zi Qinya had also noticed the change in the crystal ball. Niafeng's death had made her even more nervous. If Niafeng was dead, then what about Ling Shao and Zilong? Both of them were much weaker than Niafeng. Luckily, their avatars were still lit up on the crystal ball, which meant they were still alive. But even so, Zi Qinya didn't dare be careless. "No, I need to find them as soon as possible, as soon as possible." Zi Qinya had no interest in the purple spirit martial armor. She only hoped that Ling Shao and Zilong were still safe. No matter how much he thought about it, he would never think that Niafeng was killed by Ling Shao. At the same time, no matter if it was Yu Hua, Zilan, Mengyu, or any other men, none of them would think about it. Niafeng's death was related to Ling Shao. In their minds, Ling Shao and Zilong were the 2 weakest men, and they should be the first to be eliminated. But the reality was different from what they had imagined. "Brother Ling Shao, what should we do next? Are we really going to do as Blood Sword Reverend said and kill them?" There weren't many evil ghosts. If he wasn't mistaken, the number of evil ghosts was the same as the number of human warriors who entered the tomb. Their overall strength wasn't much weaker than human warriors, but the points they would get from killing them were only half of the points they would get from killing human warriors, and it would take a lot of effort. Therefore, in Zilong's mind, if it were those evil ghosts, they would most likely kill human warriors first. I don't plan to do that. Since they don't want to kill evil ghosts, I'll do it for them. For Ling Xiao, killing evil ghosts wasn't as simple as just getting slaughter points. It could also greatly increase and replenish his potential. It was much more beneficial to him than killing human warriors. Plus, he couldn't bring himself to kill someone who had no enmity with him. At least, he wouldn't take the initiative to do so. However, if someone tried to harm him, then he would not hesitate to kill that person. Brother Ling Xiao, you're really a good man. But I reckon that Yu Hua, Yu Qilong, and Zilong wouldn't be like you. In order to get the purple spirit martial armor, they would definitely start a massacre. They might even kill their own people. When Zilong said until here, he suddenly shuddered. He had lived in an environment of mutual deception for a long time, and he was very familiar with this kind of thing. The purple spirit martial armor is just the purple spirit armor worn by the Purple Mansion Army's marshals. Is it really worth it for them to do that? Ling Xiao asked confusedly. Zilong glanced at Ling Xiao and said, "It's not the same. Blood Sword Reverend's purple spirit martial armor is unique. It's more outstanding than anyone else's purple spirit armor. Even the purple spirit armor worn by the Purple Mansion King can't compare to it. His purple spirit martial armor has another name, the Blood Reverend armor. It's the ancestor of the purple spirit armor. Basically, all the purple spirit armors were made based on the Blood Reverend armor. Only the Blood Reverend armor isn't from the Black Tortoise continent. I think it's a treasure that the Blood Sword Reverend found in some small world. I even suspect that it's more powerful than a weapon like the Blood Sun world. According to the information left behind, the Blood Reverend armor can only be used by warriors above the 4th level of the Divine Core Realm. Only warriors at the 6th level of the Divine Core Realm can unleash its full power. It can be used up until the peak of the 6th level of the Divine Core Realm. If this armor fell into Yu Qilong's hands, his overall strength would immediately surpass his sister and Yu Hua. He might even be as powerful as the Purple Mansion Army's marshals. If Yu Hua got his hands on it, he would be able to unleash the full power of the Blood Reverend armor. He might even surpass the Purple Mansion King and become the strongest warrior in the Purple Mansion Kingdom. At that time, we won't be able to survive. Chapter 3743. Originally, Ling Xiao wasn't interested in the Purple Spirit Martial Armor, also known as the Blood Supremacy Armor. He didn't think he could become the number one in terms of slaughter points. But when he heard what Zilong said, he immediately became nervous. He had to get the Blood Supremacy Armor. Even if he didn't want it or didn't need it, he had to let Zi Qinya get it. If not, not only would Zi Qinya be in trouble, he would also be killed. Of course, his principles wouldn't change. He would never kill someone who had nothing to do with him. He didn't want to become a devil who killed without batting an eyelid and die a horrible death like the Blood Sword Supremacy. But he could still kill all the evil ghosts. With this thought in mind, he immediately unleashed the Cerberus beast soul. After that, he opened the gates of hell. Then, he unleashed 3 Death Knights who had the same strength as him. This was the limit of what he could do right now. Although they had the same strength, it didn't mean they had the same cultivation base. The combat strength of these 3 Death Knights was at the mid-3rd Divine Core Realm. But without the help of the Sky Tyrant Martial Soul, they couldn't reach Niefeng's level. After that, he unleashed another 300 First Divine Core Skeleton Warriors. Although these skeleton warriors weren't strong enough, they could still harass the other warriors. What he wanted to do was to kill all the remaining evil ghosts as soon as possible. In this way, he would be able to get a lot of slaughter points. Go, Death Knights, help me kill the evil ghosts. Skeleton warriors, help me stop the other warriors from killing the evil ghosts. After giving out the order, the Death Knights and skeleton warriors left. Ling Xiao didn't want to waste any more time. Let's go, Xiaolong. Let's kill the evil ghosts and find my sister. Once we find him, the 3 of us will be the safest. Ling Xiao didn't intend to place Zilong, who was so powerful, in the beast ring. Although Zilong's cultivation base wasn't strong, his combat strength was comparable to a mid-second divine core warrior. With the help of a large amount of talismans, he should be able to help. I'll summon my puppet beast as well. Zilong smiled. He took out a puppet beast that looked like a male lion from his storage ring. When he took it out, it was only as big as a palm, like a toy. But after he put some energy stones into it, it quickly grew. It grew to a height of more than 2 meters and a length of more than 4 meters. An early third divine core puppet beast. Ling Xiao was rather surprised. This is the strongest puppet beast I can control right now. There's no other way. To control a puppet beast, I have to rely on my soul force. Even this is very difficult for me. I call it the Flame Lion. Zilong smiled. Good. With this Flame Lion, your combat prowess will be even stronger. With us brothers working together, we can cut through metal. Let's begin. Ling Xiao also jumped onto the back of the Flame Lion. If he could conserve some energy, he would try his best to conserve it. In any case, the Flame Lion only needed spirit stones. He had a lot of spirit stones. Remember, leave all the evil spirits to me. Try your best to help me obtain the Blood Supreme armor, Ling Xiao said as he dashed towards his next target. No problem. Whether it's Big Sister or Big Brother Ling Xiao, you can get the Blood Supreme armor. I don't want anyone else to get it. Zilong nodded. I don't need it. Ling Xiao shook his head and said, I think the Blood Supreme armor is something similar to the Purple Spirit armor. For someone like me who has an extremely powerful body and inner core, it's useless. It's no longer useful to me. Rather than wasting it for me, I might as well give it to Big Sister. Once Big Sister Chinya obtains it, that old dog from the Yu family won't be able to do anything to her. We'll be safe then. Hearing this, Zilong was startled. Are you sure you want to give the Blood Supreme armor to my Big Sister? Even if you don't need it, you can still sell it for hundreds of millions of upper-rank soulstones. Zilong couldn't believe Ling Xiao's words. Your Big Sister? She's also my Big Sister. Ling Xiao said with a smile, This is called making the best use of everything. Stop nagging, just do as I say. Fine. My Big Sister didn't misjudge you. And I didn't misjudge you, my good brother. Zilong was so touched that he almost cried. Hold back your tears, it's time to fight. Because of the Tai Chi Eye, Ling Xiao was able to quickly locate the evil ghosts. After a brief moment, he had caught up with 2 evil ghosts. Both of them were below the 4th divine core realm. The battle in the evil ghost maze was still ongoing. Time continued to pass. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. Somewhere, Ling Xiao and Zilong were resting. They were also replenishing their strength and true yuan with some pills. The flaming lion was lying on the ground beside them, staring at the tunnel. During this period of time, we've basically killed all the evil ghosts below the 4th divine core realm. We've killed 15 of them, and my Death Knights have killed 10 of them. In total, we've killed 25 of them. My skeleton warriors are all dead, and 2 of my Death Knights are dead as well. I've recalled the last one back to the gates of hell. After all, it will consume a lot of my soul force and true yuan. With the 25 evil ghosts we've killed, and those who died just now, that's a total of 28. As for the remaining 22, none of them are people we can deal with. Looks like we'll have to stop here for now. Ling Xiao calculated, but these 25 evil ghosts have allowed me to get a huge amount of slaughter points. Right now, I have 344 slaughter points. I wonder if anyone else has more than me. Too bad Big Sister Chinya isn't with us. Otherwise, with the 3 of us working together, we'll be able to kill all of these evil ghosts. I don't think anyone has more than you. The speed at which you're killing evil ghosts is just too fast. With formations and sneak attacks, none of those evil ghosts can withstand more than 1 or 2 attacks. Only those third divine core warriors can withstand a bit longer, but at most, they can only withstand 4 to 5 attacks. Zi Long admired Ling Xiao more and more. This sworn brother of his was simply a godly man. The blood supremacy armor that was destined to never belong to them had now become so close. Someone is coming. Same old method, I'll hide. If this person doesn't have any hostility towards you, I won't do anything. But if he attacks you, we'll work together and kill him. After saying that, Ling Xiao transformed into the shadow warrior form. Right at the same time, a man suddenly appeared in front of Zi Long. Zi Long recognized this man. He was from the Zi family. Judging from his clothes, he couldn't be mistaken. But he hadn't had any contact with the Zi family for a long time, so he had no idea what this man's name was. This man wasn't strong, but he was an early third divine core warrior. Zi Long was sure that he wasn't his match. But when he saw the flaming lion standing next to Zi Long, he furrowed his brows. Obviously, he was afraid, because the flaming lion's strength was on par with his. "Senior, you're from the Zi family?" Zi Long asked with a joyful expression. "That's right, I'm ZMO. Actually, you should call me third uncle." ZMO stroked his beard and said with a smile. Chapter 30, 744. ZMO wasn't young anymore. He was at least in the same generation as Yu Hua. His talent wasn't anything special. That's why he was only an early third divine core warrior at this age. ZMO had a kind smile on his face. He really did look like a senior from the Zi family. "Zi Long, are you alone?" ZMO asked with a smile on his face. This old man looked kind. And if it wasn't for this strange environment, Zi Long would have really believed that he would help him. "I'm not alone, my sister is nearby." When Zi Long said this, a panicked expression flickered through his eyes. ZMO noticed the panic in Zi Long's eyes. It was a pity that this young man wasn't an actor. With his acting skills, Ling Xiao would never be able to catch up with him. "Hee, don't be afraid. I'm your third uncle, I won't harm you. Even though the rules of this exam require you to accumulate slaughter points, with my strength, I don't think I can do that. That's why I won't kill anyone from the Yu family, let alone the Zi family." ZMO smiled and said, "Let's go, I'll bring you to your sister. I saw her when I was passing by. She's looking for you as well, and she looks very anxious. Although this old man's strength isn't too strong, I can still help you a little." If Zi Long was a naive kid, he would have been deceived by this old man's flowery words. But Zi Long was no longer naive. "Thank you, third uncle. Where is my sister?" Zi Long asked with a happy smile on his face. "No need to thank me, we're a family. I just hope that you can put in a good word for me in front of your sister in the future. Let's go this way." ZMO said with a smile. "I've checked the area along the way, there isn't much danger. Also, this place is the closest to your sister." Zi Long nodded his head. Then he started walking towards ZMO. The distance between the two was instantly shortened. A cold light flashed through ZMO's eyes. But Zi Long acted like he didn't see it. He just kept walking forward. The distance between the two was less than 2 meters. At this distance, if Zi Long wanted to launch a sneak attack, he wouldn't be able to dodge in time. "Idiot, even if it wasn't for the purple spirit martial armor, you'd still have to die. You must have a lot of treasures on you, right? Let's just earn some. Moreover, this old man is one of the Zi Lan family's patriarch's men. If I kill you, Zi Qian, you will be very sad. When she was sad, she would have a flaw. It would be best if she was killed by Yu Hua. Then the Zi family will be ours." Although ZMO also wanted to obtain the purple spirit martial armor, the chances were slim. After all, his strength was not considered the strongest among everyone present. However, if he could capture a weakling, then that would be one. Killing one more person would increase his chances of success. In addition to the other benefits, he didn't even need to think about it. He immediately made his move. He threw a palm strike at Zi Long's head. At such a close distance, even if Zi Long's strength was the same as his, it was also completely impossible for him to block it. Besides, Zilong was only an early second heavenly core warrior. It would be extremely easy for Jiang Chen to kill him. He didn't expect any accidents at all. However, his hand had just reached out. A terrifying killing intent enveloped his entire body. Immediately after, he felt a sharp pain in his body and blood spurted out, even though he had tried his best to avoid the vital parts. But the man who ambushed him had a terrifying sword skill. Although he had avoided the attack on his throat, the sword still pierced through his face and went through his head. He let out a hysterical scream. Then he turned his head around. A figure appeared at a place where there was no one. Ling Xiao, Zi Qinya's sworn brother, Ling Xiao, was standing right there. Ling Xiao pulled the first blood sun whirled out from Zimo's head. Blood splattered everywhere. Zmo knelt down on the ground. He couldn't believe it, and he was filled with despair. He could feel his life force draining away at an incredible speed. You, he said, 3 times in a row, but in the end he couldn't say what he wanted to say. Zilong, who was standing next to him, also said with a smile, "Old fool, if you really wanted to help me, you wouldn't have died. Not only that, we might have even helped you. But too bad, since you're trying to kill me, you're going to die." Hearing what Zilong said, Zmo was filled with regret. Only now did he realize that Ling Xiao was baiting him to kill him. He had purposely given him a chance to ambush Zilong, and Zilong had really taken the bait. But in the end, he was caught red-handed. What a depressing death. Soon, the light in his eyes dimmed, and they became dark and gloomy. Ling Xiao had already started looting the spoils of war. Zmo's storage ring also only had some energy stones and talismans. But this guy only had 1 talisman left. Perhaps he had used all his previous talismans. After all, he was only an early 3rd divine core warrior, and it must have been difficult for him to survive until now. After putting away everything in the storage ring, Ling Xiao unleashed his divine core and absorbed the energy within Zmo's copper core. As long as his inner core didn't shatter, Zmo wouldn't be considered dead. Now that his inner core was destroyed and his body was destroyed, Zmo's evil life had finally come to an end. Perhaps this old fool had used the same method many times to gain the trust of those naive boys and girls. Countless people had died in his hands because of this. 362 slaughter points. Ling Xiao noticed that Zmo's face on the crystal ball had turned dark, and he was sure that Zmo had been killed. Without wasting any more time, Jiang Chen brought Zilong and continued walking. "Zilong, I'll give you these talismans." "I don't need them." Ling Xiao thought for a moment. If Zilong worked with him, he would have more chances to use these talismans. Therefore, he gave Zmo's talismans and all the talismans he got from Niafeng's storage ring to Zilong. With this, Zilong's combat strength would increase, and Ling Xiao would have a much easier time. If this continues, I'm afraid Brother Ling Xiao might really be able to get the Blood Overlord armor, Zilong said excitedly. "You're right, these people are all here to die, and I won't be merciful to them." Ling Xiao wasn't a bashful person. He wouldn't kill innocent people, but he wouldn't let anyone go. Right now, he had 362 slaughter points. It was a pity that there was no ranking on the crystal ball, so he didn't know where he was. He could only take it 1 step at a time. This kind of thing, after all, could only be desired. He could only work hard. However, his hope was still very high. So far, he had killed nearly half of the evil spirits. Among the 11 cultivators who died, 3 were killed by him: Feng Tian, Niafeng, and Zmo. As for the other 8, he didn't know who killed them. But he believed that even if it was a master like Yu Hua, it wouldn't be easy to find the other cultivators. After all, he couldn't use soul force to search in the evil spirit maze. Yu Hua didn't have a divine ability like the Tai Chi Eye. No matter how strong he was, if he couldn't find them, he might not be able to kill them. Chapter 37:45. As for those who were running away because they were in a maze, Yuhua might not be able to catch up to them. But it was different for him. He and Zilong were the weakest amongst all of them. Even if the others saw them, they wouldn't run away. Instead, they would pounce on them. This was where Jiang Chen's advantage lay. Brother Ling Xiao, don't you think we're just pretending to be weak? Zilong laughed. We're just like bait. Anyone who sees us will want to take a bite out of us. The result is that we'll all be killed. Unless it's a 4th level divine core warrior or above. I think they'll all be killed by us. You can even kill an early 3rd level divine core warrior with a single strike. Something like that. Ling Xiao nodded his head. It was a bit difficult to deal with a peak 3rd level divine core warrior, but he had the shadow warrior form. Once the battle began, he would be able to gain the upper hand. This was a very useful ability. Let's continue. Jiang Chen smiled. He didn't feel any guilt or pity when those who deserved to die were killed. I think Sister Qinya is going crazy right now. So many people have died. I'm sure she's looking for us everywhere. Zilong nodded his head. Both men continued following the plan. Zilong rode on the flaming lion and continued forward. Ling Xiao transformed into the shadow warrior form and followed behind. In order to find Qinya, he didn't plan to avoid any warriors below the 4th level of the divine core realm. If they didn't attack Zilong, they would be able to pass through smoothly. But if they really wanted to attack, then I'm sorry, I'll definitely get rid of him first. At the same time, Qinya was crazily flying through the evil ghost maze. Until now, she hadn't killed a single warrior. She hadn't killed a single evil ghost. No matter who she met, she would quickly leave. Because, in her mind, she only cared about the safety of those 2 men, Ling Xiao and Zilong. These 2 little fellows, they must be really scared after being thrown into such a terrifying place. God bless me. I must find them, I must. One was her brother. The other was a man she had a relationship with. He was also the only man she had fallen in love with. If anything happened to either of them, she wouldn't have the courage to continue living. But the maze was extremely complicated. She did not meet many martial artists along the way. Occasionally, a human figure would appear, but it would quickly disappear. Perhaps they were aware of her identity, so they didn't dare to show their faces. This also caused her a lot of trouble in finding Ling Xiao and Zilong, because it was impossible to find someone to ask. Stop! Suddenly, another figure appeared. This time, Qinya directly released a body securing talisman, freezing that person in place. She didn't want to kill anyone. She just wanted to find out the whereabouts of her 2 younger brothers. Although the man was a warrior of the Z family, he was still scared to death. After all, the rules of this demon labyrinth were very depressing. If he wanted to obtain the blood supremacy armor, he would have to kill. Killing evil spirits gave less killing points, and only killing martial artists gave more killing points. Therefore, they would naturally go crazy. This warrior of the Z family had witnessed Yu Hua killing members of the Yu family. That was why he was afraid of Qinya. Have you seen Ling Xiao and Zilong? Qinya asked coldly. No. The man replied with trepidation. Qinya sighed, dispelled the effect of the body securing talisman, and disappeared in an instant. The warrior of the Z family, who survived, let out a sigh of relief. He felt that his legs were about to go soft. But why are those 2 guys still alive? They are obviously the 2 weakest among all of us. 11 people had already died, but those 2 fellows were still alive. It's incredible. How did they survive? After Qinya left, the warrior of the Z family frowned, puzzled. Not to mention him. All the warriors who saw Ling Xiao and Zilong's heads still lit up through the crystal ball had the same question. Logically speaking, under such rules, those 2 were simply targets to be killed from the start. It was truly inconceivable that he had managed to survive until now without dying. They probably never dreamed of it. Those two guys who they thought should have been killed at the beginning had not only gained a lot at this time. Furthermore, the slaughter points that Ling Xiao had accumulated were already a lot. Why? Patriarch. Somewhere, a mid-third level divine core warrior from the Yu family had his heart pierced by Yu Hua's finger. Before he died, he stared at his patriarch in disbelief. They were from the same family. When he saw Yu Hua, he was happy. But he didn't expect that just as he was feeling happy, he was killed by Yu Hua. Just think of it as a contribution to the Yu family. No matter what, a mid-third level divine core warrior would most likely be killed by someone from the Z family. Yu Hua gazed at the man coldly. What Yu Hua said made the man die with his eyes wide open. The number on the crystal ball changed to 48. 12 men had been killed. After killing the martial artist and the evil spirit, my current points have reached 360 points. I'm afraid no one else has more points than me. Zi Qianya, that idiotic woman, she's just looking for her brother. She has no intention of killing anyone. I don't think she knows I've bumped into her just now. In Yu Hua's mind, Zi Qianya was his biggest competitor. Zi Qianya was being held back by Ling Xiao and Zilong. She didn't have the time to kill anyone. Of course, Yu Hua didn't want to become Zi Qianya's enemy so soon. If not, he would waste a lot of time, and he might not be able to win. Ha ha ha, the Blood Overlord armor is mine. In order to get it, it looks like I'll have to kill a few more men from the Yu family. Those bastards from the Z family, they ran away as soon as they saw me. It's impossible for them to chase after me. But there are some idiots from the Yu family who didn't understand how scary this test is, and they still dared to approach me. Idiots like them, it's not a pity to kill them, and they're useless to me. Yu Hua didn't feel ashamed for killing his own men. He was actually proud of himself. In his mind, those idiots would only become the points of the Z family. Even if Zi Qianya didn't kill them, the Z family still had powerful warriors like Zilong. As long as I get the Blood Overlord armor, even the king of the Z kingdom will not be my match. At that time, the entire Z kingdom will be mine. Zi Qianya. Oh, Zi Qianya, if you obey me and marry my son Yu Qilong, maybe I'll let you live. Otherwise, I'll chop you into pieces. There was no enmity between the Yu family and the Z family. If the Z family was willing to join the Yu family and become the servants of the Yu family, he could still let them live. But there's one thing that I've been thinking about. Nia Feng is dead. What's wrong with Ling Xiao and Zilong? Why aren't they dead yet? Yu Hua couldn't think of a reason, no matter how hard he racked his brains. It doesn't matter. Perhaps those two brats found a secluded place to hide. It's good that they're alive. They can pin down Zi Qianya. Yu Hua smiled, thinking that it might not be a bad thing. Chapter 3746. With those two idiots holding Zi Qianya back, I'll be able to get the upper hand. With that, I'll have a higher chance of getting the Blood Supremacy armor. Perhaps this is the legendary pig teammate. Ha ha ha! Yu Hua thought Zilong and Ling Xiao were Zi Qianya's pig teammates, but he never thought that his slaughter points would be lower than Ling Xiao's. In order to get the Blood Supremacy armor, I'll have to kill a few more people. Killing people is easier than killing evil ghosts, and I'll get more points. Yu Hua looked around, but he still couldn't find anyone. Without any other choice, he leapt out and started searching outside. At the same time, Zi Qianya's search was interrupted, because she had encountered the man she wanted to kill the most in her life, Yu Qilong. She would never forget what happened to the flower garden parasite. If not for Ling Xiao's timely appearance, she might have fallen into this man's trap and become a tool for him. Whenever she thought about what had happened, she would tremble. She was furious. Together with Yu Qilong was a mighty warrior from the Z family, a peak third divine core warrior, but he was severely injured. She knew this warrior. He was one of her grandfathers. Although they didn't talk much, they didn't have any grudges against each other. Qianya, quick, save me. When the old man saw Zi Qinya, he immediately shouted out in excitement. For him, Zi Qinya's appearance was his only hope. If not, with his strength, facing Yu Qilong, who was a fifth divine core warrior, he would definitely die. He didn't want to die. Actually, even if he didn't shout, Zi Qinya would save him. After all, the Zi family was brought here by Zi Qinya, and Zi Qinya felt that he had the responsibility to protect them. A cold beam shot out. Yu Qilong had no choice but to stop. He was about to kill the old man, but Zi Qinya stopped him. Yu Qilong was furious, but Zi Qinya was stronger than him, so he didn't dare attack recklessly. The injured old man took the opportunity to escape from Yu Qilong's attack range and arrived next to Zi Qinya. To be honest, there was no grudge between him and Zi Qinya. As for who would become the patriarch of the Zi family, he wasn't interested. But everyone wanted the Blood Sword Supreme's inheritance. He was no exception. That was why he had come to the burial ground this time. He was very grateful to Zi Qinya for saving him. Qianyi, I really have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I would have lost my life. This old man will definitely support you to become the head of the Zi family. The reason he said this was because Zi Lan had also passed by this place. However, he did not save him. Instead, he left in a hurry. In the past, he didn't have a stance, but now he had decided to support Zi Qinya. Zi Qian, you didn't say anything. He stared at Yu Qilong and said, "Piss off." Of course, she wanted revenge. But wanting to kill Yu Qilong was absolutely not something that could be done in a short moment. She was still in a hurry to find Zi Long and Ling Xiao, so she didn't have the time to spare. Scram! Yu Qilong was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed wildly. Zi Qinya, you're too kind. A woman like you will never amount to anything. Back then, your brother was assassinated by the Zi Mansion army for the first time. If it were me, I would turn the Zifu army upside down no matter what. But you didn't because you had too many misgivings. You were afraid of harming the innocent. Today, you did it again. If you don't kill me, I won't be grateful at all. I will still attack the people of the Zi family and kill them when I meet them. I must get the Blood Supreme armor in this round. Only then can I be qualified to defeat you. Really? I don't think so, Zi Qinya said coldly. Although the Blood Supreme armor is powerful, I don't believe that the Blood Supreme sword would be so kind. He is a murderous maniac. I don't dare to use the things that he left behind. All right, enough nonsense. Get out of here before I change my mind. Yu Qilong frowned, but he still stepped back. He knew that he was no match for Zi Qinya now. Since there was a chance to escape, he would not let it go. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Yu Qilong flew away. Bitch, just you wait. I will kill you with my own hands. Yu Qilong felt very vexed. He was the lieutenant general of the Zi Mansion army, but he was suppressed by a woman. That kind of feeling was really sullen. Today, when facing Zi Qinya, he had to escape to save his life. It was really ridiculous. However, this scene was seen by the elder of the Zi family. He felt even more humiliated. But it doesn't matter. With your soft-hearted character, you probably won't get the Blood Supreme armor. The Blood Supreme armor will definitely fall into the hands of the Yu family. After all, we won't even let go of our own family members. At that time, whether it is me or my father who gets the Blood Supreme armor, you will be a bitch. Bitch, you will wish you were dead. Thinking of this, Yu Qilong suddenly became excited. But before that, I'll give you a small gift, even if it's a little cruel. Yu Qilong had already noticed that the portraits of Ling Xiao and Zi Lan on the crystal ball were still lit up. In his opinion, this was a chance given to him by God to punish that woman. Ling Xiao, Zi Lan, you'd better not die before I catch up with you. That would be too boring. After saying this, Yu Qilong sped up and rushed forward. Have you seen Ling Xiao and Zi Lan? On the other side, Zi Qinya asked the old man. No, if I had seen them, I would have told you. In fact, the old man was cursing in his mind. If he had really seen Zi Lan and Ling Xiao, he would have killed them long ago. He wouldn't be as merciful as Zi Qinya. Forget about it then. Zi Qinya let out a sigh, then he turned around and disappeared. Damn it. Bitch, you saved me. But you should at least give me a pill. I'm so badly injured. If I bumped into someone else, I would be dead for sure. Just a moment ago, when he was in danger, he was still grateful to Zi Qinya. But not long after he was out of danger, he started cursing out loud, completely forgetting that it was Zi Qinya who had saved him. I have to leave this place first. If not, I'll be in trouble when Yu Qilong returns. The old man furrowed his brows and struggled to stand up. Although he was badly injured, he was still a peak 3rd Heavenly Core Warrior. He had no problem walking. Because of his injuries, he couldn't walk quickly. After turning into another secret tunnel, he sat down. Initially, he wanted to take a rest and heal his injuries. Right at this moment, he suddenly saw Zilong walking towards him alone. In order to better act as a bait, Zilong had even recalled the flaming lion. Since he wasn't walking quickly, it wouldn't consume much of his strength. If he really couldn't walk, Ling Xiao still had a lot of pills he could use. Therefore, he didn't need to worry. When the old man noticed Zilong, Ling Xiao also noticed the old man. Zilong, go and ask him if he has seen Sister Qinya. Ling Xiao reminded the old man. He was still in his shadow warrior form. Chapter 3747. Zilong walked over to the old man. The old man from the Zi family looked at Zilong as well. A faint sneer emerged on his face. Right now, he had forgotten that he was saved by Zi Qinya. There was only greed in his eyes. Senior, have you seen my sister? Zilong walked up and asked. He was only a dozen meters away from the old man. Yes, of course I've seen her. I was saved by your sister. I'm really touched. Do you have any healing pills with you? I've used up all my pills and I'm feeling weak right now. I don't think it'll be easy for me to help you. The old man said with a bitter smile. Yes. Zilong extended his hand and handed over a pill to the old man. The old man's eyes lit up. Good stuff. Such a good healing pill. I think it can even cure a 6th Divine Core Warrior's serious injuries. After saying that, the old man swallowed the pill without any hesitation. It was a healing pill concocted by Ling Xiao, and its effects were obvious. After a brief moment, the old man felt his strength returning. The injuries in his body were quickly healing as well. After about a minute, he was able to stand up on his own. Although he hadn't fully recovered, his serious injuries had become minor ones. Senior, you've seen my sister, right? Where is she? Zilong asked anxiously. Of course I've seen her. She drove Yu Qilong away just now and saved me. The old man nodded his head. But where she went has nothing to do with you. What do you mean? Zilong furrowed his brows. You still don't understand? Because I'm going to kill you. Although the chances of getting the blood supremacy armor are slim, I still want to try. A ferocious expression emerged on the old man's face. My sister just saved you, you ungrateful old dog. Zilong was furious. She saved me. Of course I remember. Don't worry, if I really get the blood supremacy armor, I'll return the favor to her. But you still have to die. After saying that, the old man struck. However, right when he circulated his energy, blood started flowing out from all 7 of his orifices, and he was frozen on the spot. What's going on? The old man was terrified. I've already tampered with the healing pill you took. If you don't attack Zilong, I will give you the antidote. It's a pity that you didn't pass the test. Ling Xiao's figure emerged from the darkness. He looked coldly at the old man and then pierced the old man's throat with his sword. This perfect 3rd Divine Core Warrior had died in a much more pathetic manner than Yafeng. It was tantamount to courting death. There are only 45 people left, and my slaughter points have reached 380. Ling Xiao looked at the crystal ball. In this short period of time, not only had he killed a martial artist, but there were also people who had died at the hands of others. It seemed that as time passed, many people were starting to get anxious because they didn't want to be obliterated. Some of the cultivators who were still rational at the beginning and didn't attack themselves also became crazy at this time. I can smell Sister Chenya's scent. Let's go over there. Ling Xiao was a beast soul martial artist, and his sense of smell was extremely sharp. Because Zi Qinya had been here before, it was easy for him to determine the direction Zi Qinya had left in. It was the same as before. Zi Long continued to be the bait, and Ling Xiao continued to hide. However, compared to before, both men's speed had increased a lot. Since he knew he had found the clues left behind by Zi Qinya, the next step was simple. Following the scent, Ling Xiao would be able to find Zi Qinya. Sister must be worried about us. If not, since she met Yu Qilong, she wouldn't have let that bastard escape. Zi Long looked at the crystal ball and found out that Yu Qilong was still alive. Of course! Sister cares about you and me the most. I'm guessing she's trying to find us right now. She even gave up on hunting for us. Ling Xiao sighed, but luckily at least we're still alive. Sister Qinya knows that. Even if she's worried, she won't be sad. I'll lead the way. You just need to follow me. I believe we'll be able to find Sister Qinya soon. Once the three of us are reunited, no one in this tomb will be able to hurt us anymore. Right now, half an hour had passed. Out of the 60 men, only 45 were left. At least 15 more people would be killed. The cruelty of the Blood Sword Supreme was evident. Come to think of it, this trip to the burial place of the Blood Sword Supreme was not worth it at all. Because no matter if the Yu clan or the Zi clan won, they would suffer great losses. Even if Yu Hua or Zilon obtained the inheritance of the Blood Sword Supreme, their clans would lose a lot of masters. At that time, they would probably become a second-rate or even third-rate clan. Of course, there was still hope for whoever obtained the inheritance of the Blood Sword Supreme. After all, as long as a clan had a top-notch master, it would be able to revive quickly. Then, the clan that failed would be completely finished. Thinking about it, it was really cruel. However, Ling Xiao was indifferent to these two clans. Anyway, they had nothing to do with him. Zilong and Zi Qinya didn't have a good relationship with the Zi clan. He wouldn't care about them at all. Thinking about it, Ling Xiao sped up. They didn't know that on the other side, Yu Qilong had actually returned. Yu Qilong might be tracking the old man from the Zi clan. He thought that Zi Qinya couldn't protect the old man forever, so he left a mark on the old man. And the direction that Yu Qilong came from was exactly opposite of the direction that Ling Xiao and the others were going. Both sides sped up. In a few minutes, they would meet. Of course, Yu Qilong didn't know this. He wanted to kill Ling Xiao and Zilong and make Zi Qinya suffer. But without the Tai Chi Eye, it wasn't easy for him to find them. He could only rely on his luck. Ling Xiao suddenly stopped. With the Tai Chi Eye, he could clearly see Yu Qilong rushing over. However, it was only 500 meters away, and Yu Qilong was extremely fast. Ling Xiao did not even think about it. He immediately placed the purple dragon into the beast ring, then turned and rushed into another fork in the road. It's him. Yu Qilong could already see Ling Xiao. That face, that speed, it was engraved in his heart. After all, his woman, Nieshuang, was killed by Ling Xiao, and his plan was also ruined by Ling Xiao. Chase! He chased into the fork. Unfortunately, Ling Xiao's figure had already disappeared without a trace. This guy, if it weren't for the maze, how could he escape from my pursuit? In fact, he didn't know that Ling Xiao was right next door. There was only a wall between them, but he couldn't destroy this wall. It could also isolate their auras. He sighed helplessly. Now I finally understand why this guy could survive. He's so fast that ordinary people can't catch up with him. In addition, it's a maze. As long as he enters another fork, he can escape. Chapter 3748. Yu Qilong gritted his teeth. He was unwilling to give up. But no matter how unwilling he was, there was nothing he could do. He couldn't catch up to Jiang Qin. Logically speaking, since his speed isn't as fast as mine, he must be hiding somewhere. But how did he know which path I came from? Yu Qilong had searched the area thoroughly, but he still couldn't find Ling Xiao. He started having a feeling. It was as if Ling Xiao could see him. When he approached, Ling Xiao would leave. It was like they were playing hide and seek. He couldn't see Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao could see him. Damn it, if this is the case, this is going to be troublesome. Once he sees me, he will immediately run away, and no one will be able to catch up to him. Not even my father, Yu Hua. Yu Qilong furrowed his brows. While searching, he saw a dead body. It was the old man from the Z family who had been severely wounded by him. I think his throat was slit by a sword. Don't tell me Ling Xiao did this. Damn it, after all this. I am the one who helped him. I have severely wounded this guy, and now I am giving him a huge amount of slaughter points. Yu Qilong felt even more depressed. However, he didn't expect Ling Xiao to be a threat to his father, Yu Hua. Even if Ling Xiao could run away, in order to get slaughter points, he couldn't just run away. He still had to kill. Shaking his head, he continued, walking forward. He had made up his mind. No matter if he met anyone from the Yu family or the Z family, he would kill them all. If there were more than 30 people in an hour, all of them would be killed. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. He didn't want to die like this. On the other side, Ling Xiao watched Yu Qilong leave. Then he returned to the path he came from. He continued to follow the plan with Zi Long, chasing after Zi Qinya. Time passed by, but Zi Qinya didn't stop. He was still crazily searching for them. Therefore, they had no choice but to chase after him. While chasing, Ling Xiao killed another warrior from the Yu family. Furthermore, it was a peak-second, heavenly divine core warrior, so Jiang Qin could easily kill it. This guy didn't even think before rushing over as soon as he saw Zilong. It would be strange if he didn't kill him. At this point, there were only 35 people left. His slaughter points had reached 396 points. During this period of time, he had only killed one person, but 10 people had died. It seemed that his prediction was right. The closer it was to the end, the crazier people would be. Even his companions would suddenly kill him. However, because the number of people he had killed was relatively scattered, his slaughter points were still the highest. It was just that Ling Xiao himself didn't know. They've all gone crazy. Zilong sighed. Yeah, they've really gone crazy. Ling Xiao shook his head. Perhaps this was human nature. When it came to their own interests, who would care so much? There were too few who could maintain their true nature. Big brother Ling Xiao, do you think those people are frantically looking for us? There were only 5 people left to be killed. We're not dead yet. They must be very surprised. Zilong looked at the crystal ball and said, That's for sure. But I don't think big sister Qinya will be too nervous. We've been alive for so long. I'm sure she'll think we've found a way to survive. Ling Xiao said with a smile on his face. But with her personality, I'm sure she'll still be worried. She'll definitely look for us. Zilong said with a bitter smile. That's true. That's why we should keep moving forward. I can feel that we're getting closer and closer to her. Ling Xiao guessed that Zi Qinya might have encountered some trouble. If not, she wouldn't have suddenly slowed down her speed. Big brother Ling Xiao, thank you. Zilong suddenly said. No need to thank me. We're brothers. There's no need to be so courteous. Ling Xiao said with a smile on his face. No, those people from the Z family are my family. They don't treat me as well as you do. No matter what, I want to find a chance to repay you. If I don't, I'll feel like I owe you too much, big brother Ling Xiao. Zilong shook his head and said, There'll be plenty of chances, but first we'll have to survive. So, don't say such things anymore. Pay attention to the surroundings. Ling Xiao said with a smile on his face. If he wanted to unify the Black Tortoise continent, Ziling would be a very important springboard. He believed that with his relationship with Ziqinya would definitely help him if he told her the truth in the future. Hee, I finally found you. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded from a dark corner. It gave Ling Xiao and Zilong a fright. Because Ling Xiao's Tai Chi, I couldn't capture the existence of this person. But when he saw the thing that spoke, he heaved a sigh of relief. It wasn't a person, but a bug. To be exact, it was a goo bug. Zilong, come back. Ling Xiao hurriedly put Zilong into the beast ring and then looked around vigilantly. There were a total of 3 people within a mile. 2 of them were fighting. The other one was rushing over. And Ling Xiao knew this person, even if he turned into ashes. Because he was Tang Yi. But it didn't feel right to call him Tang Yi because this person's aura was completely different from Tang Yi's. There are actually 2 souls in his body. Looks like Tang Yi's body has been taken over by someone. Ling Xiao frowned, but he didn't escape. Brother Ling Xiao, do you need my help? Zilong asked from the beast ring. Not for now. This guy knows how to use goo bugs. My shadow dancer form is useless against him. Also, it's probably useless to escape. This guy's goo bug can track us. We have to get rid of him. Otherwise, it'll be bad for us and Sister Chinya. Ling Xiao shook his head and quickly cut off the beast ring's connection with the outside world. This Tang, he was very strong, stronger than Niefeng, although they were both at the perfect bronze core realm. However, Tang Yi was possessed by someone. The person who possessed him was obviously an old devil who possessed a stronger martial skill than Niefeng. He might need to use the Sky Tyrant martial spirit, but he couldn't let Zilong and Gao Hong know about it. Little bastard Ling Xiao, your body is mine. Old Silverworm had always been thinking about Ling Xiao's body. Because Tang Yi's body was too weak, it had already started to hinder his recovery. Only Ling Xiao's body could satisfy him. Ling Xiao stared at Tang Yi and didn't leave. This battle had to be carried out. He had to get rid of those who knew how to use goo bugs. Moreover, Tang Yi's strength could help him continue to break through. If his cultivation could reach the complete Iron Core realm, he would have a higher chance of obtaining the Blood Sword Supreme's inheritance. He was also a human. Although he wasn't interested in the Blood Supreme armor, he was interested in the Blood Supreme armor. However, he was still very interested in the inheritance of the Blood Sword Supreme. He definitely wouldn't give it up easily. You're not escaping. Old Silverworm looked at Ling Xiao and sneered. Why should I escape? Ling Xiao said indifferently, since you're here for me to kill, why should I give up? You're going to die in this battle. I don't care who you are. Since you want me dead, I have to kill you. Chapter 3749. The old Silverworm was still wearing his Tribunus uniform. It was covered in blood. It was obvious that this person had already taken several lives. Cold and sinister killing intent seeped out from his eyes. In his eyes, Ling Xiao had become a dead body. It was no wonder that he was so confident. His opponent was just a 2nd level Divine Core Warrior. He was a peak 3rd level Divine Core Warrior. More importantly, he was from the same generation as the Blood Sword Lord, and he possessed a powerful 4th grade Emperor martial skill. Although using a 4th grade Emperor martial skill with his current strength was a little difficult, its power was still much stronger than a 3rd grade Emperor martial skill. Moreover, he knew that even a major general of the Purple Mansion Army would be considered very good if he could cultivate a 3rd order Emperor level martial skill. But he could even use a 3rd grade Emperor martial skill with ease. Ling Xiao had no chance of winning against him. Little guy, you're pretty brave. Where's the other one? The old Silverworm looked at Ling Xiao while searching for Zilong's whereabouts. He didn't mind killing one more person. It would increase his slaughter points by a lot. Just now, his goo bug had discovered 2 people, but now there was only Ling Xiao. This didn't seem right, but even so, he was still very excited. When he saw Ling Xiao and Zi Long were still alive, he thought they were under Zi Qinya's protection. He was a little depressed, as he couldn't get Ling Xiao's body. But now it was obvious that Zi Qinya wasn't here. These two guys weren't under anyone's protection, not even anyone from the Zi family. Although he didn't understand what was going on, he couldn't care less. Even if Ling Xiao and Zi Long had some kind of special strategy, it was useless in front of his formidable strength. You don't need to know where Zi Long is, because you're going to die soon. Ling Xiao still had a calm expression. This made the old silver worm feel a little unhappy. But as time passed, there were only a little more than 10 minutes left before the hour was up. But there were still 35 people left. This wasn't good. He had to kill Ling Xiao and Zi Long as soon as possible. The number of people decreased by 2. Forget it. I'm not going to waste my breath on you. He'll naturally come out after I kill you. The old silver worm sneered, revealing a ferocious expression. At the same time, Ling Xiao had also entered the everlasting heavenly rat's beast soul transformation state. He held the first blood sun world in his hand and activated the blood sun scripture. The killing intent in the surroundings began to madly surge into the blood sun world. Currently, the biggest benefit of cultivating the blood sun sutra was that he could directly use the killing intent in his surroundings to fight. This made Ling Xiao even more powerful. Martial Spirit Barrier. After transforming, Ling Xiao took out the first blood sun world and released his martial spirit barrier. This was because he did not want the battle here to attract the nearby warriors or evil spirits. At the very least, the martial spirit barrier could conceal their battle aura. This would also prevent the old silver worm from escaping. If the old silver worm chose to escape instead of chasing after him, he might not be able to catch up. You were the one who gave Yu Qilong the flower worm goo, right? Ling Xiao suddenly asked. That's right. At least you have some knowledge. But what's the use of knowing it now? The old silver worm revealed a ferocious smile and said, I was a famous expert in the past. I was from the same era as the Blood Sword Supreme. Do you really think you can defeat this old man with your strength? Who knows? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. In fact, he did not know if he could defeat the old silver worm. Even with the Tai Chi eyes analysis, he only had a 50% chance of winning. Everything would depend on his control during the battle. If there was a mistake in his control, he would be the one who would die. But even so, he still had to give it his all. Warriors were not afraid of hardships. Swordsmen were not afraid of anything. Brother Ling Xiao, if you really can't do it, just run. There's no need to perish together with this old thing. Zi Long could not see the situation outside from the beast ring, but he could still communicate with Ling Xiao spiritually. I don't intend to perish together with him. He's not worthy. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Don't worry. I will definitely win this battle. If he did not even have the confidence to win, what would he use to fight? Boom! Without any hesitation, Ling Xiao released the Sky Tyrant martial spirit. His opponent was too strong. He was even stronger than Niefeng. He had to use the Sky Tyrant martial spirit to deal with Niefeng. It was even more necessary to deal with the old silver worm. Even the slightest bit of hesitation could cost him his life. As the Sky Tyrant martial spirit was released, countless starlight poured into his everlasting, heavenly rat beast spirit transformation. His transformation actually glowed with faint starlight. It emitted a terrifying aura like that of a starry sky beast. Terrifying energy continued to gather. In the pitch-black universe, the roars of giant beasts could be heard. It was as if they were responding to the powerful energy. The first blood sun world in his hand began to tremble violently. The bloody light became even brighter. It seemed to have sensed the majestic energy and was roaring excitedly. The air was filled with the smell of blood that was even thicker than the evil ghost maze. Ling Xiao's eyes turned into the pupils of a beast. They were completely different from humans. At this moment, in the old silver worm's eyes, Ling Xiao seemed to have turned from an ant that could be trampled to death at any time into a ferocious lion. This caused his expression to change greatly. "What's going on?" The old silver worm was shocked. This was something that he had never expected. He had thought of many possibilities, but he had never thought that an ant could turn into a ferocious beast in an instant. Especially Ling Xiao's eyes under the beast spirit transformation. They were so cold that there was no feeling at all. It caused one's heart to tremble violently. Damn it! When did this kid grow to such a terrifying extent? The old silver worm subconsciously took 2 steps back. The contempt and disdain on his face suddenly became serious. He did not dare to underestimate his opponent anymore. "Calm down, don't panic. Even if his strength surprised me, he did not surpass me. At most, we are on par. But I have a stronger martial skill. He is still not my opponent." Thinking of this, the old silver worm gradually calmed down. An easy battle had become difficult. That was all. He still would not lose. At least, that was what he thought. Gu King's possession. At that moment, the old silver worm used his trump card. A scorpion-like Gu worm entered his forehead. A moment later, his body began to change. A huge scorpion tail appeared behind him. Even his body and face were covered with a thick, hard shell. This made his defense even more terrifying. At the same time, behind him, the phantom of a centipede appeared. That should be his martial spirit. But this centipede was a little strange. There were 100 pairs of eyes on its body. Each pair of eyes was shining with a strange light. When Ling Xiao saw this, he frowned slightly. He knew that thing was not easy to deal with and had to be careful. Chapter 3750. Ling Xiao could sense that after this old silver worm unleashed all of his strength, he was at least 10 times stronger than Niafeng. Indeed, he wasn't easy to deal with. "Strange brat, you've really surprised this old man. Who would have thought that you've been hiding such a terrifying strength? I even suspect that you're the one who killed Niafeng." The old silver worm stared at Ling Xiao. Even though he had used the Gu King's possession and summoned his 100-eyed centipede martial soul, Ling Xiao still couldn't defeat him. He still couldn't completely suppress Ling Xiao. This kid's martial soul was too strange. It was filled with the aura of the universe, and it was much more terrifying than any martial soul he had ever seen. Right now, all of Ling Xiao's martial souls had merged with the dark universe. They had perfectly merged into one. The ferocious beast soul, the sharp divine demon sword soul, both of them were much stronger than before. "You're right, I'm the one who killed Niafeng." Ling Xiao sneered. "Are you scared now?" With his Tai Chi eye, he saw a flash of regret and fear in the old silver worm's eyes. If he knew that Ling Xiao was so strong, the old silver worm would never have chased after him. He would rather hide and wait for the time to end. But now it was too late. He knew about the martial soul barrier, and unless he killed Ling Xiao, there was no way he could escape from here. He had escaped from the Blood Sword Reverend, but now he was forced to fight a second divine core warrior to the point where he had no choice but to do so. This was really ironic. Gu King's scorpion tail. The old silver worm didn't hesitate any longer. He waved his huge scorpion tail and attacked Ling Xiao. The strength of this attack had reached the level of a third-order emperor martial skill. The old silver worm had completely surpassed Niafeng in all aspects. After all, Niafeng's strongest attack was only at this level. The huge scorpion tail pierced through the air, and it was glowing with a strange blue light. It wasn't just a sword attack. It also contained a deadly poison. "If you want to kill me, this terrifying attack won't be enough." Ling Xiao sneered. He waved his first-order Blood Sun World, ignoring the huge scorpion tail's attack. He directly charged over. "Sky Tyrant, Blood Shadow Kill." With the support of the Sky Tyrant martial spirit, the power of Blood Shadow Kill was comparable to a high-grade Third Order Emperor grade martial skill. He easily knocked aside the huge scorpion tail and charged straight at the old silverworm's body. This terrifying power and speed caused the old silverworm to turn pale with fright. Damned bastard! How could you have a Heavenly King artifact? Also, why is your attack so terrifying? Is it a high-grade Third Order Emperor class martial skill? How could you possibly know how to do it? The old silverworm was startled. He was furious and aggrieved. However, he didn't have the time to express his feelings. With a wave of his right hand, it transformed into a giant pincer that grabbed toward Ling Xiao's first-generation Bloody Sun world. He was trying to block Ling Xiao's attack. This old man doesn't believe that you can really fight me head-on. I'll blow your head off. He thought it through very well. He used one hand to block Ling Xiao's attack, and the other hand to crush Ling Xiao's head. However, the reality was a little hard for him to believe. Boom! The pincer and the sword collided. The first-generation Bloody Sun world was slightly deflected, but it still stabbed toward the old silverworm. Slash! A piece of flesh on the old silverworm's shoulder was sliced off. Blood splattered everywhere. The smell of blood in the air became even stronger. The old silverworm endured the pain and thrust his huge scorpion tail forward once again. But Ling Xiao didn't want to fight him head-on. Instead, he turned into a white beam and retreated. The enraged old silverworm touched his own shoulder. His hand was stained with blood. Right now, he had the urge to tear Ling Xiao into pieces. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! He roared furiously. He couldn't believe what he just saw. Ling Xiao was just a second Heavenly Divine Core Warrior, and he was actually able to gain the upper hand in a head-on collision. Not only did he repel the old silverworm's attack, he even injured him. What was going on? Even though he had a mortal grade Heavenly King artifact, even though his martial skill was a high-grade Third Order Emperor class martial skill, but it shouldn't be this strong. Oh, right, it must be because Tangy's body is too trashy. If not, this wouldn't have happened. The old silverworm found an excuse for himself. It wasn't because he was too weak, it was because his body was too trashy. Surprised? Can't believe it? I've seen the same expression on Nie Feng's face. When he died, he was just as surprised as you were, but he was even more trashy than you. The moment I unleashed the martial soul of Tyrant, he exploded his inner core. You're stronger than him, and you only suffered light injuries when I unleashed the martial soul of Tyrant. You should be proud of yourself. Ling Xiao looked at the old silverworm with an indifferent expression. What he said was the truth. The old silverworm's performance was much better than Nie Feng's. Bullshit. I'll kill you. He was actually looked down upon and humiliated by a junior who was thousands of years younger than him. The old silverworm felt like his lungs were about to explode. He roared furiously and once again charged toward Ling Xiao. But this time he used an even more powerful martial skill. 100 Eyes Field. Along with his furious roar, the surrounding environment instantly changed. The originally pitch-black universe. It was actually blocked by countless pairs of eyes. Those pairs of eyes emitted cold and evil gazes, as if they were all staring at Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao didn't move. He looked at this strange field with vigilance. For cultivators, a field was already an outdated thing. But as a martial skill, a field could still be rejuvenated. Countless cultivators had studied this field for more than 100,000 years in order to make it more effective. With the completion of the 100 Eyes field, Ling Xiao suddenly felt the pressure on him increase. It was as if he was being stared at by countless pairs of eyes. His whole body was uncomfortable, and he didn't feel good at all. Then, rays of purple light were released from the countless pairs of eyes. They shot wildly at Ling Xiao's body. This terrifying purple light had great destructive power. If the opponent didn't have a high-level third-order Emperor Martial skill or above, they would be riddled with holes in an instant. Even if they had a high-level third-order Emperor Martial skill, they would still be seriously injured. Ling Xiao felt that he had made the right choice. That was to use the 100 transformation divine weapon as an armor. Because of this, his defense had been greatly improved. It was equivalent to a low-level 4th order Emperor Martial skill. Because of this, even if the purple light kept hitting him, he would only suffer minor injuries. But he had to admit that he felt really uncomfortable. Every ray of purple light could force out the potential in his body in order to resist the pressure of the purple light. But the old silverworm didn't know about Ling Xiao's ability. In his opinion, a high-level third-order Emperor Martial skill was something that even a 4th-order divine core warrior couldn't cultivate. Ling Xiao was only a 2nd-order divine core warrior, and that made it even more impossible for him to cultivate it. Therefore, when faced with this frightening attack, he would definitely die. There was no way for him to turn the tables around. "Buddy, you really don't know how strong I am. I don't think Niafeng knows how to use a martial skill like this." After unleashing the 100 Eyes field, the old silverworm's confidence returned. Chapter 3751. Brat, you're just a 2nd-level divine core warrior. Do you really think you can defy the heavens? Facing my 100 Eyes domain, only death awaits you. The old silverworm was in high spirits, and excitement could be seen in his eyes. After being scared to death by Ling Xiao, he could finally hold his head high and let out a breath of relief. Indeed, his 100 Eyes spear was extremely frightening. Ling Xiao was in the middle of the 100 Eyes spear's attacks, and he could feel his body constantly being impacted by the terrifying attacks. If it wasn't for his black tortoise divine body and the defense of the 100 transformations weapon, he wouldn't have been able to survive. But right now, he didn't have the time to care about these things with the old silverworm. He was feeling both pain and happiness at the same time. Such a high density of attacks, it caused the potential in his body to explode. Not only was the energy in his cultivation ocean increasing rapidly, even his Naiden was becoming stronger. The divine core in his body was actually unleashing its energy to strengthen Ling Xiao's inner core. This was something that even Ling Xiao didn't expect. 10%, 20%, 80%, 90%, 100%. The energy in his cultivation ocean skyrocketed like a flood. However, when it reached 100%, it finally stopped. It looked like breaking through to the perfect 2nd divine core realm wasn't an easy task. But even so, Ling Xiao's combat strength had increased by at least 7 to 8 times. He was much stronger than before. It was time for him to strike back. 100 Eyes Sphere is indeed frightening, but it's still lacking by a little bit. I'll let you have a taste of my divine ability. Suddenly, Ling Xiao's voice sounded out from within the countless purple lights. This startled the old silverworm. Although the 100 Eyes Spear wasn't his most powerful attack, it was still extremely frightening. Why couldn't he kill Ling Xiao? What was this guy's body made of? Just as he was still in shock, a cold voice sounded out once again. "Bloodthirsty plague." Following this voice, the red plague instantly filled the entire space. Countless eyes were swallowed by the plague. Even the old silverworm's body was covered by the plague. At this moment, the old silverworm was scared out of his wits. He thought that the previous Ling Xiao was already the strongest Ling Xiao. However, he never expected that Ling Xiao still had a trump card. What the hell is this? It was like a goo worm, but it was stronger than a goo worm. It was like a domain, but it could also restrain a domain. Could it be that this brat is also an old monster that has lived for thousands of years and has taken over someone else's body like me? The old silverworm's shock was no small matter. He began to confirm that Ling Xiao was an old monster who had hidden his strength and was deliberately pretending to be weak. It was only when he was captured that he revealed his true strength, making him feel fear and regret. Perhaps Nie Fong had encountered the same situation. Even though he still didn't understand the true effects of the bloodthirsty rat plague, he still didn't know the true effects of it. But old Silverworm was a goo master. He was well aware of the terror of goo worms. Therefore, he desperately urged his true essence to drive away the plague, fearing that it would affect him. Even so, the effects of the bloodthirsty plague still took effect. Devour energy, devour chi and blood. It was even gnawing on his inner core. Devour martial spirit. These little things were simply the most terrifying goo worms. No matter which goo master it was, they could not refine such a terrifying thing. To speak the truth, even Ling Xiao himself was shocked by such an effect. In the past, his bloodthirsty plague could only devour blood and energy. At most, it could weaken the opponent. But now, not only had the devouring range increased, its power had also clearly increased. He guessed that this was due to the increase in the grade of his unbounded heavenly rat beast soul. Of course, it was also related to the awakening of his sun god bloodline. In addition, his cultivation had also increased. Thus, the current bloodthirsty plague was created. This was definitely an unexpected gain. No, this cannot happen. Get lost. Originally, old Silverworm had only used 10% of his true essence, attempting to drive away or eliminate the bloodthirsty plague. But now he realized that this was not working. His inner core had actually started to show some small cracks. If he could not suppress these little things as soon as possible, he would be finished without even fighting. He had no choice but to use 30% of his strength. As this 30% condensed into a terrifying attack, the bloodthirsty plague was suppressed. Only then did he gradually regain his composure. But that was 30% of his strength. In other words, if he were to fight with Ling Xiao, he could only use 70% of his strength at most. Otherwise, he would be bitten to death by the bloodthirsty plague. However, what made him feel terrified was Ling Xiao, who was opposite him, seemed to have increased his strength again. Not only was his strength not weaker than before, but it had also become stronger. Break for me! Old Silverworm roared, his true essence roaring wildly. He tried to disperse the space formed by the bloodthirsty plague. This feeling of suppression was really too depressing. Goo King's kill! In his rage, old Silverworm once again used a martial skill. His 100 Eyes domain needed to fight against the bloodthirsty plague. So, he could only use other martial skills to attack. Fortunately, old Silverworm was an old monster, and he was proficient in many third-level Emperor martial skills. Goo King's kill was one of them. Following the angry roar, a huge scorpion shadow broke out of his body and rushed in the direction of Ling Xiao. Since he couldn't break the bloodthirsty plague, then he would destroy the body of the bloodthirsty plague. Do you think you can kill me with just a third-level Emperor martial skill? The second move of Blood Shadow Sword art, Phantom Kill. It was a move even more terrifying than Blood Shadow Kill. Ling Xiao's body completely turned into a phantom during the attack, invisible and traceless. Its power was 2 or 3 times stronger than Blood Shadow Kill. In addition, it was supported by the Sky Tyrant martial spirit. Its power was very terrifying. Boom! A terrifying roar sounded. Goo King's kill hit empty air. Ling Xiao was no longer in the same place. This made old Silverworm tremble all over. Ling Xiao was no longer in the same place, so there was only one possibility, and that was that he was already close to him. At this moment, he revealed an extremely frightened expression. He desperately urged his true essence to defend. However, this sword strike still managed to cut off one of his arms. Old Silverworm let out a terrified roar. His figure was like a ghost, scurrying around in the small martial spirit barrier. He was afraid that Ling Xiao would attack him again. At this moment, the confidence that had just been restored to his face disappeared once again. What remained was only fear and regret. You forced me to do this. You forced me to do this. Anger and fear made Old Silverworm ready to do whatever it took. He didn't want to use a 4th level Emperor Martial skill at first, because a 4th level Emperor Martial skill would cause his body to fester completely. After all, this body was Tang Yi's, not his own, so it couldn't bear such a terrifying power. But at this moment, what could he do? Explode his Naiden? Nia Feng had already exploded his Naiden once, and he failed. Whether Ling Xiao was telling the truth or not, he didn't want to take the risk. So he planned to use a 4th level Emperor Martial skill. It was safer than exploding his Naiden, and its power was not inferior. Chapter 3752. Ling Xiao, I admit that you are very strong and a tough bone to chew, but don't force me. Release your martial spirit barrier now, and we will pretend we never met. Otherwise, even if I lose this body, I will turn you into ashes. Don't underestimate my determination. The Old Silverworm was still afraid. He had finally found Tang Yi, this idiot, to contain his soul. He was absolutely unwilling to give it up so easily, so he did not want to die. He was unwilling, even if he had to die together with Nia Tian. In this aspect, he was inferior to Nia Feng, but it was understandable. After all, he had been sealed for thousands of years. How depressing would it be to die right after waking up? If it were anyone else, they would probably be unwilling as well. I believe in your determination, but I don't believe you can kill me. Ling Xiao was bursting with confidence now. How could he easily let go of the Old Silverworm, who had lost an arm? No matter how he looked at it, he had the upper hand now. The other party did not even have the qualifications to die. Good, good. The Old Silverworm's expression suddenly became extremely sinister and terrifying. You have to force me. You have to force me. I will let you die without a burial place. Ling Xiao's determination and strength left the Old Silverworm with no other choice. At this moment, he could only fight with all his might to obtain a chance of survival, even though he was extremely regretting that he had provoked Ling Xiao. But no matter what, things had already reached this stage. He did not care anymore. Rumble. A terrifying thing happened. Countless worms crawled out of the Old Silverworm's body. These worms gradually wrapped around his body, forming a layer of sturdy goo worm armor. A strange venom was released from the insect's body, making him look extremely ugly. But it had to be said that this change caused the Old Silverworm's battle strength to soar. The Old Silverworm laughed wildly, as if he had gone crazy. His entire body became 3 to 4 times bigger. His original human form was now only 30% human-like, and the other 70% resembled a ghost. A crazy poisonous fog spread in the air. This poisonous fog was not only a neurotoxin, but also a corrosive toxin. It could injure a martial artist's soul, causing them to lose their consciousness and then corrode their body. It would completely turn the martial artist into a pile of poisonous liquid. Ordinary 3rd-level divine core warriors wouldn't be able to defend themselves from this poisonous mist. Release them, my cute little babies. I have painstakingly refined these goo worms for thousands of years. Use your venom to corrode that stupid human. Hearing the Old Silverworm's words and seeing the changes in the Old Silverworm's body, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. This move of the Old Silverworm was indeed a move that could kill 1,000 enemies, but damage to himself by 800. Most likely, after using it, his physical body would be completely destroyed. However, he had to admit that this move caused his strength to skyrocket. It had increased by at least 10 times, although he was still far away from the 4th divine core realm. His strength had once again suppressed Ling Xiao. Even though Ling Xiao was under the tyrannical heavenly martial spirit, he still felt fear and pressure. To be honest, I don't want to use this move the most, because he hurt others and hurt himself, but you don't know how to cherish it. If you insist on keeping me here, then I can only kill you first." The old silverworm was not happy, because this was not the result he wanted. Initially, he just wanted to kill Ling Xiao easily, then kill Zilong and leave quietly. But who would have thought that this would be the result? Hurt others and hurt yourself? But in my opinion, besides hurting yourself, this move of yours is useless. Ling Xiao said with a mocking smile on his face. The first blood sun whirled in his hand was still glowing brightly. The blood-red energy caused the killing intent in the air to skyrocket. He pointed the sword at the old silverworm. It was as if he was walking through a storm. Jiang Qin had to admit that the old silverworm had given him a huge amount of pressure. But this wasn't enough to scare him. "You're just bluffing." Even a 4th-level divine core warrior would be terrified by this move of mine. "You don't have to put on an act. Do you really think I'll fall for your trick? In just a few moments, you'll be lying on the ground because of this deadly poison, and you'll turn into a pile of venom." The old silver worm didn't believe that his most powerful attack couldn't kill Ling Xiao. He didn't believe it, and he didn't dare to believe it. He knew that if he still couldn't defeat Ling Xiao with this move, it would mean that he had completely failed. What awaited him next would be the most miserable death. Oh, how long is a few moments? The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled into a mocking smile. "It'll be over soon," the old silverworm said. Ling Xiao responded with a smile. He didn't say anything, and he didn't attack either. He just waited. 10 seconds passed. Ling Xiao was still standing there, completely fine. The old silverworm's expression changed slightly. 20 seconds passed. Ling Xiao was still fine. The old silverworm started to panic. 30 seconds passed. Ling Xiao had finally changed. But this was the change that the old silverworm didn't want to see. The terrifying poisonous mist was devoured by the Hydra. 30 seconds had finally allowed Ling Xiao to break through his shackles. His cultivation had once again increased, and he had broken through to the peak 2nd-level divine core realm. His overall strength had increased by a few times as well. Compared to the late 2nd-tier divine core realm, it was at least 10 times stronger. Not only was Ling Xiao still alive, his overall strength had increased. This caused the old silver worm to turn pale with fright. How is this possible?" The old silver worm couldn't believe this. "Everyone who tries to poison me will tragically realize that I am the ancestor of all poisons. Hydra of hell, sky tyrant, myriad snakes." Just now, Ling Xiao had been quietly absorbing the poisonous mist to increase his overall strength. But now there was no need for that, since the old silverworm had realized that the poisonous mist couldn't hurt him. Therefore, he had to end this battle as soon as possible. Following his roar, countless huge poisonous snakes flew out from the universe of tyrants like divine dragons. In an instant, they filled the entire space. The old silverworm was bitten by the poisonous snakes, and he was in great pain. Even though he could resist the poison, these poisonous snakes had sharp teeth. They could easily tear apart any part of his body. No, give me a quick death, I beg you." The old silverworm screamed out in fear. Although Zilong couldn't see what was happening outside the beast ring, he could still hear what was happening outside. The old silverworm's miserable begging had caused him to fall into a daze. He had never thought that his big bro Ling Xiao would be so terrifyingly strong. Even the old silverworm couldn't fight back in front of him. "Give him a quick death," Ling Xiao said with an indifferent tone. A huge snake king swallowed the old silverworm in one gulp. Ling Xiao had no interest in torturing his enemies. Besides, this old silverworm had been tortured enough. After the old silverworm was killed, Ling Xiao's slaughter points increased once again. Now it was 420. Ling Xiao retracted his martial soul barrier. The smell of blood quickly spread out. Chapter 37:53. The stench of blood and killing intent was quickly released. But Ling Xiao didn't care about it anymore. There were less than 7 minutes left before the end of the first stage. Even if he ran into Yu Hua, he still had a chance to escape. There are still 33 people left. While Ling Xiao was killing old Silverworm, he had also killed a man. There were only 7 minutes left. There were still 3 people left before the requirement of 30 people. Perhaps everyone was very anxious right now. Ling Xiao turned his head to look at the 2 cultivators who were fighting within a 1-kilometer radius of him. Both of them were second-tier divine core warriors. One of them was a warrior from the Z family. The other one was Gue Su. He wouldn't kill the innocent, but Gue Su must die. Not only did Gue Su trick Zilong into being captured, he even poisoned the men of the King Mansion. Why not kill a traitor like him? Why keep him alive? Ling Xiao dashed over. The 2 warriors were still fighting fiercely. Because both of them were equal in strength, it was impossible for either of them to win in a short period of time. Gue Su, prepare to die. Suddenly, Ling Xiao's voice could be heard. The 2 martial artists who were in the middle of a battle were startled. The originally dark and gloomy battle actually quickly came to a stop. Both of them looked at the direction where Ling Xiao was coming from. Fuck, so it's you, you little trash. You scared me. Seeing Ling Xiao, Gue Su wasn't scared at all. Instead, he became extremely angry. He looked at the warrior from the Z family and said, "Brother, can we put our fight aside for now?" "Of course, but Ling Xiao is mine." This warrior from the Z family was Z Lan's loyal dog. He was unhappy that Ling Xiao dared to talk back to Zilan in the star-picking pavilion. He had been looking for Ling Xiao and Zilong all this time. He didn't expect to run into Gue Su. Both of them started fighting. Now that he saw Ling Xiao, he naturally wouldn't let him go. "All right, let's fight together. Let's see who's faster." Gue Su was overjoyed. Dealing with Ling Xiao by himself, he was still somewhat unsure. But if he joined forces with the warriors of the Z family, that would be much simpler. Origin Deity was an alchemist, after all, so he was a notch inferior in terms of speed. In an instant, the warriors of the Z family took the lead, just as the bottomless ruin was feeling depressed. Suddenly, he found that the warrior of the Z family had been split into 2. Blood covered his face. The number on the crystal ball changed to 32. "Impossible. How did you suddenly become so strong?" Sinkhole looked as if he had seen a ghost as he turned around and fled. But at this time, Ling Xiao directly took out the profound theory bow and shot an arrow at Sinkhole. The arrow pierced through Gue Su's head from behind. Gue Su charged forward for a distance before finally collapsing to the ground. Ling Xiao swallowed their inner cores one after another, turning them into the potential of a divine pill. Then he collected their storage rings. Only then did he take a look at the crystal ball. The number changed to 31. There were about 6 minutes left before the first level of the game ended. If they could not reduce the number of people to 30 before the end, everyone would be wiped out. Although Ling Xiao didn't believe the blood sword reverend's threat, but the others did. Therefore, in the evil ghost labyrinth, crazy pursuits were happening everywhere. Everyone wanted to get rid of this last person and end this terrible massacre. But in the end, no one wanted to die. They would definitely try their best to hide. It wouldn't be easy to find them, but Ling Xiao didn't try to hide. Instead, he unleashed his killing intent without hesitation. It was as if he was purposely trying to lure those who were trying to kill the other warriors. After a brief moment, a figure appeared 1 mile away from Ling Xiao. With this person's speed, it would take her at least 10 seconds to arrive. But Ling Xiao didn't plan to run away. It was the girl from the Z family, Mengyu. Mengyu was a peak 4th divine core warrior. With Ling Xiao's current strength, he was no match for her. But it wouldn't be easy for her to kill him. This time he didn't summon Zilong. Instead, he watched as Mengyu approached. I never thought my killing intent would attract you. Looks like my luck isn't that good. Actually, Ling Xiao was trying to attract Zi Qinya. After searching for half a day, he still couldn't find Zi Qinya. Instead of wasting time, he decided to unleash his terrifying killing intent. His killing intent could penetrate through the evil ghost labyrinth's barrier. If Zi Qinya was nearby, she would definitely come. But the first one to arrive was Meng Yu. This surprised Jiang Qin. In fact, Meng Yu was even more surprised. Meng Yu saw the corpses of the Gui Su and Zi family warriors on the ground. All of them were second-level divine core warriors, but they were obviously killed with a single strike. And there was only Ling Xiao here. Could it be Ling Xiao who did this? Where's Sister Qinya? Meng Yu asked cautiously. She had racked her brains, and she felt that there was only one possibility for Ling Xiao to survive, and that was Zi Qinya protecting them. Since Ling Xiao was here, Zi Qinya must be here as well. That was the reason why Jiang Qin didn't attack immediately. She was afraid that this was a trap. I didn't see her. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled into a smile as he said indifferently, "You didn't see her? Hee, don't joke around. Are you going to tell me that you killed these two men?" Meng Yu laughed. The smarter a person was, the more suspicious they would be. Although Ling Xiao said he didn't see Zi Qinya, Meng Yu felt that Ling Xiao was lying to her. He was purposely baiting her to attack, so that Zi Qinya would have a reason to kill her. And I killed them. Not only them, I also killed Niafeng, ZMO, and the others. Oh, that Tangy over there, he was killed by me as well. What else do you want to know? Ling Xiao asked calmly. Ha ha ha, little guy, you're really good at joking. If you killed those men, doesn't that mean I can kill you Hua as well? Meng Yu didn't believe Ling Xiao's words at all. Believe it or not, Sister Qinya isn't here. Ling Xiao said indifferently. There are less than 5 minutes left until the end of the first round. There's still one more death. Aren't you going to do something? Boy, you're too cunning. Are you trying to lure me to kill you? I'm not that stupid. Besides, we're a family. Why would I kill you? Meng Yu was almost certain that Ling Xiao was purposely baiting her. She wouldn't fall for it. However, Zilong and Gao Hong were laughing in the beast ring. Meng Yu is too stupid. Brother Ling Xiao is telling the truth. But she doesn't dare to do anything? Hee, you can't blame her. This is the so-called empty fort strategy. Our allies are too smart. Instead, they scared themselves. Gao Hong smiled and said, I have to say, young Master Ling Xiao is really cunning. If he said he was lying about the king being here, Meng Yu wouldn't believe him. Brilliant, really brilliant, Zilong praised. In fact, they all misunderstood Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was really an honest person. Chapter 3754. Time ticked by. There were only 4 minutes left before the hour was up. Zi Qinya still hadn't shown up. Meng Yu was puzzled. Could it be that this guy is telling the truth? Maybe I'm wrong? Having thought of this, she turned to Ling Xiao and asked, Buddy, where is Zi Qinya? I told you she's not here. I'm alone. Ling Xiao said with an indifferent tone. You're really alone. Meng Yu thought to herself. If Zi Qinya was here, she wouldn't have disappeared for such a long time. Therefore, she was starting to doubt her own judgment. Of course. Ling Xiao nodded his head. Zi Qinya, Sister Qinya, stop fooling around, come out now. Meng Yu shouted to the surrounding people. Suddenly, with a ferocious expression, she said, If you don't come out now, I'll have to use this guy's life to save everyone. Still, there was no response. Meng Yu had decided to risk it all. If this continued, there would only be 31 people left, and everyone would be killed. She didn't want that to happen. Buddy, we don't have much time left. You don't want Zilong and Zi Qinya to die, right? Meng Yu looked at Ling Xiao and asked. Of course. Ling Xiao nodded his head. If that's the case, if there are still 31 people left in the last minute, why don't you let me kill you? Meng Yu finally revealed her ferocious expression. You want to kill me? Are you serious? Ling Xiao said with a surprised expression. Little brat, don't pretend. Didn't you say that ZMO also died in your hands? If you can kill people from the Z family, why can't I kill you? I'm doing this for everyone's sake. I have no other choice. After saying that, Meng Yu walked towards Ling Xiao step by step. Since it's for everyone's sake, why don't you let me kill you? Ling Xiao said with a mocking tone. You're old, and you've exhausted all your potential. I'm afraid you'll only be this strong for the rest of your life. I'm different from you. My potential is huge, and I can break through to the 6th divine core realm in the future. I might even surpass Blood Sword Lord. Rather than me dying, it's better for you to die, don't you think? Kid, you're quite eloquent. Unfortunately, your mouth won't be able to save you. I can now confirm that Zikianai is not here. So it's time for you to die. Meng, you could not even wait for a few minutes. She wanted to kill Ling Xiao as soon as possible, in order to earn more slaughter points. Oh, who said I wasn't here? Suddenly, a cold voice sounded behind Meng Yu. In that instant, Meng Yu was so frightened that she shuddered and hurriedly scurried to the side. She looked at the woman behind her in horror. It was a graceful woman in a purple-blue dress. Zi Qinya. Meng Yu trembled in fear. At this moment, she had already thought of a very terrifying outcome. She might die. She knew how protective Zi Qinya was of Ling Xiao. Sister Qinya, don't be angry. I was just giving you a suggestion. Think about it. What if the time is up and there are still 31 people left? Then we'll all die. Meng Yu hurriedly said. That's right. Then you can stay. If at the last minute, the number of people is still 31. If the time is up, then I'll kill you. It just so happens that I haven't killed anyone yet. Zi Qinya saw Ling Xiao and heaved a sigh of relief. In addition, Zilong's portrait was still there. Although they had not found him yet, the time was almost up. Zilong was probably in a safe place. Therefore, she was in the mood to threaten Meng Yu. Don't, Sister Qinya. Meng Yu's face instantly turned pale. At this moment, she could only pray that at the last minute, the number of people left would be 30. Otherwise, with Zi Qinya's character, she would definitely not let her go. Zi Qinya looked at Meng Yu coldly and said, You'd better stand there obediently and not move. If I find out that you want to escape, then I'll definitely kill you immediately. At least now you might still be alive. After saying this, she looked at Ling Xiao happily. Are you okay? I'm fine. Ling Xiao smiled and said, But fortunately you came in time. Otherwise, I would have been killed by that woman. Don't joke with me. You must have your own ability to survive until now. I'm a little worried about you. It's a pity that I don't know where Zilong is. Zi Qinya sighed and said, Zilong. Ling Xiao smiled and removed the shield from the beast ring. Zilong rushed out from the ring. Sister. Seeing Zi Qinya, Zilong was very excited. With her sister, Zi Qinya, it was the safest place, because in this tomb, even Yu Hua might not be Zi Qinya's opponent. Xiaolong. Zi Qinya was stunned. She suddenly looked at Ling Xiao and said, You really gave me a big surprise. It turns out that you've been protecting Xiaolong. I really don't know how to thank you. We're a family. Don't mention it. Don't be so distant. Ling Xiao smiled and said. Hearing this, Zi Qinya seemed to have thought of something, and her face blushed. Someone is coming. Ling Xiao suddenly said, and it's a big fish. A 5th heavenly core warrior from the Yu family. Don't worry, I'm here. Zi Qinya said. No, that's not what I meant. Sister Qinya, please injure that guy. I'm here to kill him. Ling Xiao said. Since he had obtained a huge amount of slaughter points, he still wanted to get the blood sovereign armor. Since this fish had taken the bait, How could he not kill it? This guy was a peak 5th Heavenly Core warrior. After killing him, he would be able to get 40 slaughter points. After killing Gui Su and the warrior from the Z family, Jiang Chen's slaughter points had reached 440. If he could kill this guy as well, his slaughter points would increase to 480. The possibility of getting the first place in the tomb had increased. Meng Yu, lure him here. If you can't kill him, I'll kill you. Zi Qinya looked at Meng Yu and said, all right, I'll do it. In order to survive, Meng Yu was willing to take the risk. She dashed out from the tomb. After a brief moment, she returned. The man who followed behind her was the peak 5th Heavenly Core warrior from the Yu family. He was a mighty warrior who was on par with Zi Qinya. Obviously, the man didn't realize that this was a trap. Without any hesitation, he leapt towards Meng Yu. However, Zi Qinya suddenly attacked. An early 6th Heavenly Core warrior sneak attacking a peak 5th Heavenly Core warrior. It was easy for her to kill him. However, after listening to Ling Xiao, she didn't kill the man. Instead, she kept him alive. Without hesitation, Ling Xiao stepped forward and killed the man. He even devoured the man's gold core. The gold core was a precious treasure. A huge amount of potential energy was stored in Ling Xiao's divine core. Not only that, it also increased the energy in Ling Xiao's cultivation by 10%. This 10% was incredible. It was equivalent to 100% of his previous energy. After all, Jiang Chen was breaking through from the 2nd Heavenly Core realm to the 3rd Heavenly Core realm. Every 10% required a huge amount of energy. Chapter 37:55. Following the death of the Yu family's 5th Heavenly Core warrior, the number on the crystal ball became 30. Ling Xiao's slaughter points also became 480. Right at this moment, the image of Blood Sword Reverend appeared on the crystal ball once again. He clapped his hands and laughed. Nicely done! The first test, the Evil Ghost Labyrinth. All 30 of you have passed. The same image appeared on everyone's crystal ball, and they all said the same thing. Some of them were annoyed, while some felt lucky. Those who were annoyed felt like they didn't have enough slaughter points. Those who felt lucky felt like they could finally wake up from this nightmare. As for what the crystal ball was, why did the image of Blood Sword Reverend appear on the crystal ball? Why did the image know how to speak? They didn't have the time to think about it. They were already very lucky to be able to survive this test. Right now, everyone was waiting for Blood Sword Reverend's next words. The Evil Ghost Labyrinth had ended. Did this mean the entire game had ended? Or was there going to be a second test? They didn't know, but there were some who were looking forward to it. For example, Yu Hua. He had already obtained 450 slaughter points. He thought he had definitely gotten the first place. Therefore, he was looking forward to the Blood Sovereign armor as his reward. Come on, come on. In order to get the Blood Sovereign armor, I even killed my own men. Finally, this moment has arrived. This is so exciting. Yu Hua was extremely excited. In his mind, only he was qualified to get the Blood Sovereign armor. No one else was qualified to get it. On the other side, Meng Yu was panting heavily as she stared at the corpses of the Yu family warriors. If it wasn't for this idiot, she would have been the one to die. Zi Qinya protected Ling Xiao and Zi Long by her side, waiting for Blood Sword Reverend to continue. The first test was so cruel, it had given her a bad impression of Blood Sword Reverend. Therefore, she thought Blood Sword Reverend wouldn't let them go so easily. Perhaps there would be a second test. The difficulty and cruelty of this test was even more terrifying than the first test. 60 men entered the first test, and 30 of them died. This was already terrifying enough. No matter if it was the Z family or the Yu family, it was a nightmare. If they couldn't get the Blood Sword Supreme's inheritance in the end, these people would have died in vain. If there is a second trial, it will be even more troublesome. This was because Yu Hua Tai would definitely obtain the blood supremacy armor in this round. That lunatic wouldn't even let off his own people. The Blood Sword Supreme liked killing maniacs like this. Therefore, he would definitely be the one to obtain the Blood Supreme armor. Once he obtains the Blood Sovereign armor, his strength will increase greatly and I won't be his match. At that time, once we meet him, we will definitely be killed. Zi Qinya never dreamed that Ling Zhao's slaughter points would reach 480. After all, Ling Zhao's cultivation was still not strong enough. Therefore, she was very worried right now. Ling Xiao didn't say anything because he wasn't confident either. Although he had obtained 480 slaughter points, it was still not enough. But until the very last moment, no one knew whether they would be able to get first place. After all, although Yu Hua didn't have the Tai Chi eye, he was a lunatic who killed without blinking. He even killed his own people, and those who were loyal to him at that. He couldn't do it. It was hard to say who would win and who would lose. He could only wait for the Blood Sword Supreme to announce the results. The evil spirit maze has ended. Next, we will announce the slaughter points ranking of the top 5. The person with the highest slaughter points will obtain the Blood Supreme armor. Many people with low slaughter points weren't interested in this at all. But since they were bored anyway, they just listened casually. However, those with high slaughter points were very nervous. No matter how they guessed, the final result wouldn't count until it was announced. 5th place, Meng Yu, 62 slaughter points. Obviously, the points were announced in order from the 5th to the 1st. Meng Yu didn't expect that she would be 5th. She thought that with only 62 points, it would be impossible for her to enter the top 5. From this, it could be seen that it wasn't easy to obtain these points. Every martial artist had their own life-saving skills. If they didn't want to die, it would be very difficult for others to kill them. Many people might have hidden from the beginning, thinking that even if they didn't get a single slaughter point, they would still survive until the end. But things weren't as easy as they thought. With the existence of evil spirits, they would be chased out even if they tried to hide. Therefore, they went looking for their companions, but who would have thought that they would be killed by their companions? 4th place, Tang Yi, 76 slaughter points. Tang Yi was the man Ling Xiao had killed. He was killed by Ling Xiao a few minutes later. He must have killed a few people before this. If not, he wouldn't have gotten 76 slaughter points. But a dead man was like an extinguished lamp. Even if he had gotten those slaughter points, they were meaningless now. Of course, if he didn't get first place, no matter how many slaughter points he got, it was meaningless. 3rd place, Yu Qilong, 84 slaughter points. Yu Qilong was a 5th level divine core warrior, so it was normal for him to get 84 slaughter points. But right now, many people were talking about it. Among the remaining warriors, there were 3 5th level divine core warriors, including Zilon from the Z family and 2 peak 5th level divine core warriors from the U family. There were 2 6th level divine core warriors, including Zi Qinya and Yu Hua. The 1st and 2nd place would definitely be decided from these few people. As for Ling Xiao, none of them thought about him at all. Aside from Zilong, who kept glancing at Ling Xiao, even Zi Qinya didn't expect Ling Xiao to get so many slaughter points. Next, I will announce the 2nd place. It seemed like the shadow of Blood Sword Reverend was an intelligent being. Perhaps it was controlled by Blood Sword Reverend's broken soul. Why did he purposely take a deep breath here? After some time, he continued, 2nd place for 150 slaughter points. Who could get so many slaughter points? Most of the people were shocked after hearing about the slaughter points. How many people did he have to kill in order to get so many slaughter points? Don't tell me it's Zilon. That guy is cruel and merciless. He won't even let his own people go. Zi Qinya murmured to herself. In her mind, Yu Hua must have gotten more slaughter points than this. Indigo had killed so many people, but it was probably for nothing. On the other side, Yu Hua was completely dumbfounded. 450 slaughter points. Wasn't this his result? He knew his own result better than anyone else. He didn't get first place, he got second place. This was something he couldn't accept. Who? Who is it? Who is it that has more slaughter points than me? Is it Zilan? Or Yu Zhen? Or Yu Hang? Yu Zhen was a peak 5th level divine core warrior from the Yu family. Yu Hang was another peak divine core warrior, but he was killed by Ling Xiao. Chapter 3756. But even if Yu Hang was dead, he could still get the highest slaughter points. Even if Tang Yi was dead, he would still get the 4th place. If it was Yu Zhen or Yu Hang, he could still accept it. But if it was Zilan, he couldn't accept it. Right at this moment, Blood Sword Reverend announced the name of the 2nd ranked warrior, Yu Hua. Why is it him? Zi Qinya was startled. Yu Hua isn't the 1st ranked warrior. Who is it then? Everyone was waiting for the answer. There was actually someone who had more kills than Yu Hua. It must be Zi Qinya from the Zi family. Impossible, it must be Yu Zhen. Many people were discussing, but this time Blood Sword Reverend didn't keep them in suspense. He announced the name of the 1st ranked warrior. First place, Ling Xiao, 480 slaughter points. Hearing this name, everyone was dumbfounded. It was as if they had lost their souls. Ling Xiao, how was this possible? He was just a 2nd level divine core warrior. How could he have more slaughter points than Yu Hua? Yu Hua couldn't accept this result. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. This is cheating. He must have cheated, but too bad no one cared about his voice. Even if he really cheated, what could he do? To be honest, Ling Xiao let out a long sigh of relief. This Yu Hua was really fierce. If it wasn't for Zi Qinya who helped him kill that peak 5th level divine core warrior from the Yu family, his slaughter points would have been 440. His slaughter points went from 440 to 480. He was really going to lose to Yu Hua. This old thing is really fierce. Even with the advantage of the Tai Chi Eye, he almost lost. Zi Qinya looked at Ling Xiao as if he was worshipping a god. For a long time, he was unable to calm his beating heart. As for Mengyu, she looked as if she had just seen a ghost. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. But 3 men, 3 phantoms of Blood Sword Reverend. The result was exactly the same. How could she not believe it? Sister Qinya, don't look at me like that. If it wasn't for you who helped me kill that guy, I wouldn't be the 1st ranked warrior. Ling Xiao shrugged. Now that the results were out, he heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, if Yu Hua got the Bloodlord armor, who knew what he would do? I can't believe it. How did you do it? Zi Qinya was still in disbelief. If Master Taiyuan and Yang Shi had followed them, she could still understand. But the problem was that those 2 people were not here. Big sister. Other than the last one, I helped the rest. Zilong said excitedly. Actually, what I want to know most is Yu Hua's expression. He had worked so hard to obtain so many slaughter points, and he hadn't even hesitated to hurt his own people. In the end, I was the one who picked the peach. Won't he be mad with anger? Ling Xiao couldn't help but laugh. Puchi! Zi Qinya couldn't help laughing. She could imagine Yu Hua's exasperated look. But soon she stopped laughing and said, Ling Xiao, I think everyone knows that you got the 1st ranked warrior. Yu Hua has suffered such a huge loss. I don't think he will let you go easily. You have to be careful. Even if I don't get the 1st ranked warrior, do you think he will let me go after meeting me? You don't have to worry about that. Whether I offend him or not, he will still kill me. So why didn't I go crazy? Ling Xiao didn't really care. That's true. The Blood Lord armor, once you get it, you will be able to unleash a combat strength that is at least 1 stage higher. That means since you are now at the peak 2nd Heavenly Core Realm with the Blood Lord armor, your combat strength will be at least at the peak 3rd Heavenly Core Realm. Zi Qinya said excitedly. Hearing what she said, Ling Xiao and Zi Long both had strange expressions on their faces. Big sister, you've underestimated him. Even without the Blood Lord armor, he can still unleash such combat strength. Therefore, the Blood Lord armor is useless to him. Zi Long said with a bitter smile. That's right. I've decided to give the Blood Lord armor to you, Sister Qinya. Either you use it, or you give it to Zi Long. Either way, I don't need it anymore. In fact, even if the Blood Lord armor was useful to him, he still wouldn't want it. Since he had decided to give it to Zi Qinya and Zi Long, he wouldn't change his mind. Give it to me? Zi Qinya was startled. The Blood Lord armor was so precious, and he was giving it to her? Once she obtained the Blood Lord armor, perhaps she would be able to unleash a combat strength equal to a peak 6th heavenly core warrior. She might even be stronger than the king of Z Mansion. Just as she was about to speak, the Blood Lord sword spoke again. The Blood Lord armor belongs to Ling Xiao, who has accumulated the most slaughter points. But the reward won't be given out now. It will be given out after someone obtains my inheritance. Remember this, the Blood Lord armor belongs to Ling Xiao. As long as you kill him, you will be able to obtain the Blood Lord armor that belongs to him. Ha ha ha, isn't this fun? Fun your sister. Fuck your mother. Ling Xiao was so angry that he started cursing. This Blood Lord sword was too treacherous. It was obvious that he had become the target of everyone's criticism. Whoever killed Jiang Qin would be able to obtain the Blood Lord armor. At that time, apart from Zi Qinya and Zi Long, everyone else would be killed. They would go crazy and try to kill Jiang Qin. After all, this was the Blood Lord armor. Especially that old bastard Yuhua. There was no way he would let Ling Xiao go. This Blood Lord sword is indeed not a righteous man. No wonder he was hunted down by the emperor of the Dongxing strong country. He has completely fallen into the path of evil. The way I see it, he basically wants everyone who enters the bone burial ground to kill each other. No one will be able to obtain his inheritance, Zi Qinya said with a frown. If that's really the case, I will definitely turn Blood Lord sword into ashes. Old bastard, you're already dead, but you still won't stop. A ruthless look emerged in Ling Xiao's eyes. From now on, if anyone dared to show any hostility towards him, he would definitely kill them. He had to be more ruthless and merciless. If he died, he would be helping that old bastard, Blood Lord sword, achieve his goal. His remnant soul would probably laugh maniacally. All right, I've said what I need to say. Next, there's another test. After passing the second test, one of you will be able to obtain my inheritance. Now, follow me to the final resting place. The Blood Lord sword's figure was very clear. The bone burial ground had prepared 2 tests for the outsiders. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to take it. Moreover, the final resting place should be the final resting place of the Blood Lord sword's life. It should be the core area of the bone burial ground. But how would they get there? Just as everyone was puzzled, the crystal ball suddenly released a terrifying devouring power. Everyone was sucked into it. When they opened their eyes, they had already left the evil ghost maze and arrived at a brand new place. This place looked like an ancient underground palace. Chapter 37:57. This palace was even older than the Blood Sword Supreme. The Blood Sword Supreme might have found this place suitable for hiding, so he came here. Zi Qinya guarded Ling Xiao and Zi Long warily, because all 30 of them appeared in the same place. The Blood Sword Supreme had said that whoever killed Ling Xiao would get the right to inherit the Blood Supreme armor. The others would definitely take special care of Ling Xiao, including those from the Zi family. Sister, it's too dangerous for you to protect the 2 of them. Why don't I hide in Brother Ling Xiao's beast ring? I don't want to cause you trouble. If you need me, just let me out. Zi Long suggested. Ling Xiao nodded and kept Zi Long. At this time, Ziqinya would not object to this. After all, this was indeed the best way. Ling Xiao looked up and found that there was a blood-red liquid above the palace. If he guessed correctly, the evil ghost maze should be above this palace, and there was no other way to come in. They could only be guided here by the crystal ball. As he looked, he suddenly felt the malice from countless pairs of eyes. Ling Xiao looked at the people in front of him. There were 20 people from the Yu family left. There were only 8 people from the Z family left, including him and Gao Hong. There were 10 people in total. The 2 families had lost a lot of people, especially the Yu clan. Their losses were even greater. After all, when they entered here, there were 40 people from the Yu family and 18 from the Z family. The Yu family lost 20 people, and the Z family lost 10 people. This might be the reason why the Yu family was so angry at this time. They did not want to lose so many people and get nothing in the end. Ziqinya protected Ling Xiao and stood in the corner of the palace, staring at the remaining 26 people. Whether it was the Z family or the Yu family, they could be their enemies at this time. The place where they landed was very small, about 100 square meters in total, and there were thick walls around them. They did not see a door. Even if there was a door, it should be closed. Therefore, Ziqinya and Ling Xiao had no chance to escape. Soon, he was surrounded by others. Ziqinya, make that brat swear that he will give the Blood Supreme armor to the Z clan after we get out. We can help you. Otherwise, we will also join hands with the Yu clan to deal with you. Zilan looked at Ziqinya and said coldly, I can swear. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a faint smile, but it quickly disappeared. Originally, he wanted to give the Blood Supreme armor to Ziqinya. Ziqinya was also a member of the Z clan. Therefore, swearing or not swearing didn't make much of a difference. Then he swore an oath. Violet Orchid smiled and was about to walk over. At the side, Meng Yu said, Husband, don't be fooled. That brat originally planned to give the Blood Sovereign armor to Ziqinya. What? Zilan stopped in her tracks, feeling like she had been played. Ling Xiao smiled and said, Z clan members, don't you think Ziqinya is the best candidate? Only with the Blood Lord armor could she suppress Yu Hua. Even the Purple Mansion King was no match for her. At that time, your Z family will be rich. Except for Zilan and Meng Yu, the rest of them felt that Ling Xiao was right. Although Ziqinya didn't have a good relationship with the Z clan, she was still a member of the Z clan. Keep the goodies within the family. Don't you forget how Ziqinya's parents died. If you dare to go over, I will tell the truth and let Ziqinya kill you one by one. Zilan roared. What? Ziqinya was stunned. She had always thought that her parents died to save the Z clan. However, Zilan's words didn't seem right. Zilan, you'd better tell me clearly. Otherwise, I will never let you go. Ziqinya said coldly. The cause of her parents' death had been concealed for decades. Today she found out a clue. Don't talk nonsense. Today, whoever dares to snatch the Blood Supreme armor from the Yu clan will die. Yu Huan naturally had his own confidence when he said these words. His Yu clan had 20 survivors, twice as many as the other party. Among the other party, Gao Hong and Zilong were useless. In other words, they only had 8 combatants. As long as he held Ziqinya back, the Yu clan could slaughter the entire Z clan. Therefore, he didn't care about Zilan's choice at all. Zilan and the others were shocked. They hurriedly turned from surrounding Ziqinya and Ling Xiao to facing the Yu clan. They had no choice. They had to make this choice. Otherwise, they would die too. Moreover, they would die faster. Boom! Just as the battle was about to start, a stone door in the palace opened. A person walked in from that door. It was a terrifying person who was full of murderous intent. No, that's not a person. It's a puppet warrior. But it looks exactly like the Blood Supreme. It must be a puppet warrior made by the Blood Supreme. He was also a powerful puppet master in the past. Seeing the puppet warrior, no one dared to act rashly. The terrifying aura released by the puppet warrior was no less than Zi Qianye and Yu Hua. It's just a puppet. Don't worry about it. Suddenly, an expert from the Yu clan dashed out. He threw a punch at the puppet warrior. The puppet warrior wasn't the real Blood Supreme. He wasn't afraid at all. As for that terrifying aura, it was very likely that it had been deliberately created. It was fake. However, when he dashed out, his throat was pierced by the puppet warrior's finger. He died on the spot. How dare you act rashly in my burial place? Are you tired of living? A soaring killing intent was released from the puppet martial artist's body. The entire palace had turned into a purgatory. This caused everyone to tremble in fear and panic. At this moment, everyone understood just how terrifying was this puppet warrior. Although it might not be as strong as the Blood Supreme, it was still an existence that couldn't be underestimated. No one dared to act rashly. They all stood there obediently. The puppet warrior sat on the throne and asked with a smile, "You're not messing around anymore? Good. Since that's the case, let's start what's next." His voice was exactly the same as the Blood Supreme's. One could tell that the Blood Sword Lord back then was truly a genius. Whether it was martial arts or puppet making, he was top-notch. It was a pity that he ended up on the demonic path. Otherwise, he would have become a legend in the Golden Sky region. Everyone, you can call me Blood Demon Supreme. This is the name given to me by Shuiyang. The puppet warrior said indifferently, "The killing game in the evil ghost maze has ended. I'm sure everyone isn't calm yet. It's okay. The next stage will be more exciting." Hearing this, everyone cursed in their hearts. Exciting my ass. No one needed that kind of excitement. No one could accept that half of them had died. Chapter 3758. Death Wail? Just hearing it made people feel uncomfortable. Who knew what kind of torturous trick it was? This Blood Sword Supreme was too good at tormenting people. However, the puppet warrior did not care about their feelings. It continued, "The Death Wail game is 3 times harder than the Evil Spirit Maze. Therefore, there are 3 types of rewards. As long as you can get into the top 3, you will be rewarded. What you need to do is to walk out of this stone door and keep going forward. Whoever can last the longest will get the highest ranking. The last 3 people will be the top 3. Hearing the puppet warrior's words, everyone was speechless, not to mention 3 rewards. Even if there were 10 rewards, they would not want to try. Unfortunately, they did not have the right to choose now. They could only continue to listen. The rules were still very vague. It only said to walk along that path, but the puppet warrior did not explain what was on that path. No one dared to ask. No one wanted to offend this fellow. After all, 1 person had just died. This puppet warrior did not have any emotions and killed without hesitation. It had no scruples. Death wail? I'm afraid there will be many dangers along the way. Wail in death. Wail in death. It will not be comfortable. Evil spirits. Mechanisms. Puppets. Traps. There might even be other things that are hard to bear. It must be like this. Even if Ling Xiao used his thigh, he could guess that these tricks were purely used to torment people. He hated being teased like a toy. He really hated it. If the Blood Sword Supreme died, he would definitely turn that old thing into ashes. If he did not die and still had an inner core, he would devour it. This kind of person should be buried in history. But come to think of it, Ling Xiao had a strange feeling. There was a very attractive aura in that deep passage. This aura resonated with his divine sun-beast soul. Perhaps there was really something good inside. It would not be bad to try. The greater the danger, the greater the opportunity. The puppet warrior naturally didn't care about what everyone was thinking. He just continued to say, "Don't worry." It continued, "Now, I will announce the details of the rewards." The 3rd place would receive 2 rewards. The first reward was a high-grade spirit stone, a total of 1 million high-grade spirit stones. The second one is a martial skill book. It's a 6th Order Emperor realm martial skill called Blood Devil Seal, used by the Blood Sword Reverend Shuiyang when he was at the 6th Divine Core Realm. Hearing this, everyone's eyes widened in shock. He could barely control his excitement. Although 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones was a lot, it was not enough to make these people risk their lives. However, the second reward was incredible. Even Yu Hua and Zi Qinya, who were both generals, didn't have a blood demon seal, a high-grade 6th Order Emperor level martial skill. This terrifying attraction could be said to be fatal. Originally, many people were still thinking about how to get out, but now each and every one of them had an excited and greedy expression. Sure enough, money moved people's hearts. Although the Blood Sword Supreme was despicable, he had to admit that the greed of human nature was incurable. Ling Xiao was in no position to mock others. Even he shuddered when he heard that it was a 6th level Emperor grade martial skill, Blood Devil Seal, that is indeed a martial skill that the Blood Sword Reverend started cultivating after he broke through to the 6th Divine Core Realm. It is extremely powerful, and it can directly destroy the cultivator's blood and qi. It can cause the cultivator's blood and qi to change. No matter how strong the cultivator's defense is, the cultivator will still be severely injured. The Blood Sword Supreme relied on the Blood Devil Seal to travel across the 4 regions, and only when he broke through to the peak 7th Divine Core Realm did he start cultivating another martial skill. It's also his most powerful technique. Yu Hua couldn't help but exclaim, a 6th level Emperor grade martial skill. An entire Z kingdom, perhaps only the king has it, and it is only a 6th level Emperor grade martial skill. A 6th level Emperor grade martial skill. I think it can only be found in places like the Eastern Victory Kingdom. Such a powerful martial skill, but it is only the reward for the 3rd place? What kind of terrifying reward will the 2nd place get? Zi Qinya's words made the crowd even more expectant. Could it be that the 2nd place will be able to obtain the Blood Sword Supreme's strongest skill? Yu Zhen furrowed his brows and said, Impossible. What else can the 1st place get? Zilan shook her head and said, Right at this moment, everyone seemed to be in harmony. No one was arguing or attacking each other. They were all focusing on the rewards. Compared to the Blood Sword Supreme Armor, the martial skill was more tempting. Although the Blood Sword Supreme Armor was good, it was still an external object. Once the martial skill was mastered, it would belong to the cultivator. Furthermore, once a mighty warrior like Yu Hua or Zi Qinya successfully cultivated the Blood Devil Seal, even the Blood Sword Supreme Armor wouldn't be able to stop them. In fact, Ling Xiao had some doubts in his mind as well, but he believed that since the Blood Sword Supreme gave out such a reward, he must have his reasons. Perhaps the reward for the 1st place was something better that the Blood Sword Supreme had found in the ancient palace? The puppet warrior gazed at the crowd with disdain. The expression on his face was so real that it almost looked like a real person. After the crowd finished their discussion, he continued, The 2nd place also has 2 rewards. The 1st reward is 5,000,000 upper rank soul stones. 5,000,000 upper rank soul stones. This amount was much higher than 1,000,000 upper rank soul stones. Many people were tempted by the reward, but they believed that apart from the upper rank soul stones, there must be something better. For example, a martial skill. Therefore, they all looked at the puppet warrior, waiting for his next words. The puppet warrior didn't disappoint them. He said, The 2nd reward is the strongest martial skill of the Blood Sword Supreme, the 9 heavens of slaughter. It really was the 9 heavens of slaughter. Those who had read the history of the Blood Sword Supreme knew the 2 strongest martial skills of the Blood Sword Supreme. One was the 6th Order Emperor realm martial skill, the Blood Devil Seal. The other one was the 7th Order Emperor realm martial skill, the 9 heavens of slaughter. Yu Hua was shocked. The 2nd place can get the 9 heavens of slaughter. This is heaven-defying. Even in the entire Dongsheng strong country, there are less than 3 7th-order Emperor realm martial skills. Even in the entire Golden Sky domain, the 9 Heavens of Slaughter is a super martial skill that countless people dream of. Its power is 100 times stronger than the Blood Devil Seal. It is a peerless martial skill that the Blood Sword Supreme had never been able to cultivate in his entire life. But after cultivating it to the 6th heavens, the Blood Sword Supreme is able to use it to fight a 9th heavens divine core warrior, the Emperor of the Dongsheng strong country. Yu Hua was, after all, a great general. He knew more than the others. But if the 9 Heavens of Slaughter is so powerful, why didn't they leave it for the first place? Could it be that the first place martial skill is something even more terrifying than the 9 Heavens of Slaughter? Meng Yu furrowed his brows and said, "Even an idiot knew that the reward for the first place was better than the second place." Chapter 37:59. Although the 9 Heavens of Slaughter was extremely powerful, it was only a 7th-order Emperor martial skill. There were still other martial skills that were stronger than it. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. Therefore, they couldn't wait to know what the next reward was. This time, the puppet warrior didn't keep the crowd in suspense. Instead, he continued, "There are 3 rewards for the champion. The first one is still the upper grade soul stones, 10 million. 10 million upper grade soul stones. Normally, a warrior with such wealth would at least be a 7th-order divine core warrior. Perhaps this blood sword reverend only had less than 20 million upper grade soul stones, and most of them were used as rewards. The second reward is the blood sword used by Blood Sword Reverend when he was still alive. It is a spiritual grade Heavenly King weapon." Hearing the rewards, the crowd was once again stirred. Although there were a lot of upper-grade soul stones, they could still be earned slowly. But a spiritual grade Heavenly King weapon was something no one from the Purple Kingdom could ever obtain. Even in the entire Dongsheng strong country, there were less than 3 spiritual grade Heavenly King weapons. This was really too precious. Sure enough, the champion is different. I wonder what the third reward is. The crowd was looking forward to it. The third reward is also a martial skill. To be exact, it is an immemorial tortoiseshell. There is a martial skill carved on it. Even Blood Sword Reverend doesn't know its name, because Blood Sword Reverend didn't succeed in cultivating it. But one thing is for sure, this martial skill is not any weaker than the 9 Heavens of Slaughter. It might even be an 8th-order Emperor martial skill. Only those who are fated with it are qualified to obtain it. Of course, you can also choose to give it up and choose the 9 Heavens of Slaughter. Blood Sword Reverend is a very humane person. Hearing this, the crowd heaved a sigh of relief. It looked like the champion was indeed better than the champion. Not only did he get an extra 5 million upper grade soul stones, he also got a spiritual grade Heavenly King weapon blood sword. Most importantly, he could choose the 9 Heavens of Slaughter or the martial skill recorded on the immemorial tortoise shell. Perhaps those who liked to play it safe would choose the 9 Heavens of Slaughter. But Ling Xiao was looking forward to the immemorial tortoise shell. All treasures that were passed down from the immemorial era were all great treasures. Ling Xiao believed that the reason why the Dongsheng Kingdom's king wanted to kill the Blood Sword Supreme was not only because the Blood Sword Supreme had killed countless people, but also because of this immemorial tortoiseshell. For the rest of the time, you can choose to start the game or stay here to rest. This death whale game wasn't about speed but endurance. However, the rest time could not exceed 10 minutes, or else they would be obliterated. I wish you good luck. Goodbye. After the puppet warrior finished speaking, he quickly rushed into the deep tunnel and disappeared. At this moment, the remaining 29 people did not have the time to fight amongst themselves. Everyone looked at the open stone door and thought about what to do next. Obviously, this was a very tempting game, although it was extremely dangerous. However, in addition to a large number of high-grade spirit stones. There were even rewards like Blood Demon Seal, 9 Heavens of Slaughter, Immemorial Martial Skills, and Spiritual Heavenly King Artifact. It was impossible for anyone not to be tempted. However, since the Blood Sword Supreme had not succeeded in cultivating the immemorial martial skill, most people were not particularly interested in it. To them, that thing was of little value. Instead, the 9 Heavens of Slaughter was more suitable for them. Among all of them, only Ling Xiao had the clearest goal. He was determined to obtain the immemorial martial skill. He even suspected that his sun god Beast Soul had sensed the immemorial tortoiseshell and responded. Ling Xiao. Seeing Ling Xiao's lifeless eyes as if he was thinking about something, Ziqinya could not help but call out. This was because there were already people who had entered the tunnel. Although the puppet warrior had already said that the test this time was about endurance and not speed, it was still a test of endurance. Naturally, there were also people who thought that if they were one step ahead, they would be able to reach the end first. Sister Qinya, I'm fine. Let's wait until the end. There's no rush. Ling Xiao looked at Ziqinya and said. He believed that the tunnel would be filled with traps and dangers. Whoever walked out first would definitely be unlucky. There were probably many people who thought the same as him. Therefore, there were only 2 people who were rashly going out now. One was Zilan, who was impulsive. The other was an expert from the Yu family. However, that guy seemed to have been ordered to scout the way. He seemed a little unwilling. I'll listen to you. After experiencing so many things, Ziqinya had gradually gotten used to following Ling Xiao's orders. Although Ling Xiao was not as strong as her, she was not as smart as Ling Xiao. Also, Sister Qinya, you don't have to worry about Zilong and me this time. I'll take care of Zilong. You just need to finish the second test. The top 3 in this test will all be rewarded. I don't want the reward to be taken away by others. This was the only thing Ling Xiao wanted to tell Ziqinya. In the previous trial, Ziqinya was too concerned about their safety, so she lost her composure. She only cared about finding people and had no intention of competing for the Blood Supreme armor. That kind of method was absolutely not allowed in this round. No, I might be able to help you reach the end first. Ziqinya suddenly smiled and said, Don't you still have Gao Hong and Zilong in your beast ring? If you're the first to arrive, it means that the top 3 are all here. I'm afraid the beast ring won't work on this test. The Blood Supreme, Sword, must have thought about this. However, it's okay. I have other methods. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Anyway, you just need to go all out at the beginning. When I need your help, I won't be polite. Ling Xiao's method was naturally the Mountain River world. Even if the Blood Supreme Sword could eliminate the use of the beast ring, the Mountain River world was not something he could control. Actually, the better method was to let Gao Hong and Zilong rest here. However, the puppet warrior had said that they could only stay here for 10 minutes. If they didn't leave after the time was up, they would be killed. Therefore, putting Gao Hong and Zilong in the Mountain River world was the best choice. Of course, Ling Xiao would not let the 2 of them know the truth. He would let them think that they were still in the beast ring. Okay, we'll do as you say. Ziqinya nodded. At this moment, Ziqinya did not have the domineering aura of a monarch in front of Ling Xiao. She was completely an obedient wife. Suddenly, a scream came from the tunnel. Something had happened to the expert of the Yu family. This scream caused everyone's hearts to tremble. However, there were only a few dozen seconds left before the 10 minutes were up. Everyone was ready to set off. It was impossible for them not to leave. Everyone wanted to wait for others to leave first. However, because the countdown had already started, those who did not want to die could only rush out. Only Ling Xiao was very calm. He did not seem to be in a hurry at all. In the last 10 seconds, everyone had rushed out. Only then did Ling Xiao and Ziqinya slowly walk out of the palace. Chapter 3760. Right when Ling Xiao and Zi Qinya dashed out from the palace, they immediately heard a series of miserable screams coming from the front. It looked like someone had fallen into the trap. And it wasn't just one person. Because Zilan and Yu family didn't have many warriors, the chances of triggering the traps were lower. But this time it was different. When everyone came out together, the traps would definitely be triggered. This was the reason why Ling Xiao had to wait until the end. Since someone was standing in front of them and taking the hit for them, why not? When the last two men left the palace, the stone door instantly closed behind them. The tunnel was filled with a thick smell of blood. There were also flashing red lights. It gave off a terrifying feeling. Yu Qilong turned around and looked at Zi Qinya. After that, he threw his glance at Ling Xiao. He hadn't forgotten the humiliation he suffered just now. As long as he had the chance, he would definitely kill Ling Xiao and make Zi Qinya suffer. Brother Qilong, let me deal with that guy. Yu Hao volunteered. You'd better concentrate on this test. The top three in the Yu family are the patriarch, Yu Zhen, and you. Don't let other things affect your mind. Yu Qilong looked at Yu Hao. He nodded his head and said, "All right, I'll leave it to you." Yu Hao had just broken through recently. He had broken through from the peak third heavenly core realm to the early fourth heavenly core realm. It took Yu Hao 20 years to break through. But it was just the right time. Although they wanted Ling Xiao's life, they weren't stupid enough to do it now. Ling Xiao was right next to Zi Qinya, and even Yu Hua couldn't kill him. The opportunity they were waiting for was when Ling Xiao was alone. The environment of this passageway was very complicated. No one knew what would happen later. I can smell the terrifying killing intent in the air, and it seems like the deeper we go, the more terrifying it gets. Ling Xiao furrowed his brows and said, "Sister Qinya, if I'm not mistaken, besides the traps and traps, this killing intent is the scariest thing. It can mess with one's mind and drive one crazy. I can feel it too. This is just the beginning, and it's already so scary." It was hard to imagine what more terrifying things would happen if they continued to walk forward. No wonder the puppet martial artist had said that this level was a test of endurance. Not only the endurance of the body, but also the endurance of the soul. Zi Qinya nodded. "Let's go. Sister Qinya, follow me closely." Ling Xiao had the Taiji eye. If he walked along the path that the others had taken, he would be able to avoid the traps and mechanisms that had not been activated. However, the most troublesome part was that terrifying killing intent. Even the Taiji, I would not be able to avoid it. In that case, he would have to endure it. The two of them started to move forward. Ling Xiao noticed that as soon as they stepped into the tunnel, Zilong and Gao Hong were forced out of the beast ring. Because he had always cared about them, Ling Xiao sent them back into the mountain river world the moment they were forced out. Just as I expected, the beast ring can no longer contain living creatures, but the mountain river world can. The tyrannical sky martial spirit is indeed powerful. Ling Xiao smiled to himself and continued forward. The passageway was very spacious. It was more than 50 meters long. It can accommodate many people side by side. It should be comfortable to walk in here. But right now, none of them showed any signs of comfort. Instead, they were like a small boat in the middle of a stormy sea. They were swaying crazily, and they could sink at any moment. The terrifying killing intent was really unbearable, but they could still withstand the killing intent at the beginning. Yu Hua and Zi Qinya were not affected at all. After all, they were sixth heavenly core warriors. If their souls were shaken by such a tiny amount of killing intent, they would be too weak. But everyone knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would only get harder and harder. The blood sword reverend was a lunatic. He did not care about human lives. Even if all of them were to die, he would not care. Perhaps this was his goal all along. The reward might be real, but this road was a dead end. No matter what the others thought, Ling Xiao thought the same. The blood sword reverend's personality was like this. He would rather bring his own things into his grave than give them to anyone else. But even if he did not give them to Ling Xiao, could he not take them? Not necessarily. There was a limit to what a dead man could do. Ling Xiao's performance was better than Zi Qianye and Yu Hua's. Although the two of them did not feel anything strange, they still had to circulate their soul energy to resist the killing intent. But Ling Xiao was not the same. Not only did he not have to resist, he was like a fish in the water. It was much more comfortable than being on the ground. The killing intent was his nourishment. The killing intent was the resource that tempered his soul. It had been a long time since his soul energy had improved. The Blood Sword Reverend's killing intent was perfect for him to use. Oh, Blood Sword Reverend, I bet you would never have thought that there would be a freak like me. Ling Xiao smiled inwardly and continued to walk forward, following closely behind the main group. Obviously, it would be safer with more people. Under such killing intent, the people from the Yu family would not act recklessly. They dared not act recklessly. They did not want to lose the big picture for the small. After walking for about 10 minutes, Ling Xiao realized that all the traps and mechanisms had disappeared. However, his killing intent had increased by twofold. The Blood Sword Reverend probably felt that there was no need for those traps and mechanisms. His will to kill is more than enough. Because there were no more traps and mechanisms, many people sped up. After all, the slower they walked, the more tormented it would be. Gradually, only Ling Xiao and Zi Qianye were left behind. The two of them were still chatting as they walked slowly. Under the threat of the killing intent, Zi Qianye felt a little pressured. However, Ling Xiao was still calm. After a while, they suddenly saw a corpse on the ground. It was the expert from the Yu family who had entered the tunnel first. It seems like he had seen something terrifying when he was alive. He was scared to death. Ling Xiao checked the corpse and said, "Killing intent is indeed more terrifying than traps and mechanisms." Zi Qianye frowned. The road ahead was probably going to be even more dangerous. They continued to walk. After walking for another 10 minutes, the killing intent doubled again, reaching 3 times the previous killing intent. Beads of sweat appeared on Zi Qianye's forehead. He could clearly feel the pressure. In front of them, there were shouts of killing. When they went over, they saw an expert from the Zi family slashing and killing in the air. He was crazily consuming his true essence and physical strength. If he continued like this, he would definitely die of exhaustion. What a terrifying killing intent. It's already making people hallucinate. Zi Qianye frowned. Then, Zi Qianye slapped that person unconscious. It could be seen that although Zi Qianye blamed the Zi family, he still had feelings for them. After all, blood was thicker than water. Ling Xiao did not say anything. The other party was just a person who could not pose a threat. It did not matter whether he killed him or not. Chapter 3761. There are only 27 people left. Ling Xiao looked at the crystal ball in his storage ring and said, "Let's continue." Zi Qianye nodded, and the two of them continued to move forward. In less than 10 minutes, they saw another corpse. It was a member of the Yu family. Obviously, he died of exhaustion. 26 people. Ling Xiao sighed and continued to move forward. Half an hour later, his slaughter had increased to 4 times its initial level. Even Zi Qianye felt a lot of pressure from this. It was not as easy to move forward as before. "You're a little special." Zi Qianye looked at Ling Xiao and was surprised. This was because Ling Xiao's breathing had not changed at all. It was still very normal. "Sister Qianye, I will tell you when it's time. Now, I'm really sorry." Ling Xiao shook his head. He could not tell Zi Qianye the secret of the martial spirit. Even if he trusted Zi Qianye, there was no guarantee that Zi Qianye wouldn't spill the beans when her brother's life was in danger. Therefore, keeping a secret was also keeping a friend. Okay, I won't ask. Qinya closed her mouth obediently. The two of them continued to move forward. In the fourth 10 minutes, they saw 6 corpses. Some of them died of exhaustion, and some of them killed each other. Now, there were only 20 people left. This was really cruel. Ling Xiao could see the pity on Chinya's face. After all, Chinya was the monarch and she loved her people. Moreover, there were members of the Z family among the dead. Naturally, she would be sad. Ling Xiao was also a sentimental person. Seeing these people die so miserably, he didn't feel good in his heart. The blood sword reverend was too cruel. He did not give them a chance to live. After 40 minutes, the slaughter had quadrupled. Chinya began to feel confused. Ling Xiao could already imagine what would happen to the others. Ling Xiao, can you think of a way? If this goes on, everyone will die. I don't care about the Yu family, but not everyone in the Z family deserves to die. Chinya couldn't help asking. I'm sorry, big sister Chinya. I can't do anything now, unless they're knocked out in advance. Otherwise, you will be affected by the killing intent. Ling Xiao said, All right, let's knock them out. Qian clenched his teeth and said, You just wait in the back. Don't worry. I'll handle this. Remember, don't be anxious. Otherwise, when I have no time to take care of you, you will be ambushed by those bastards from the Yu clan. After saying that, Chinya rushed out. He was indeed worthy of being a 6th-level divine core warrior. His soul was incredibly powerful. Even though he felt a lot of pressure, he was still able to move freely. How could I let you take the risk alone? Seeing Chinya disappear, Ling Xiao also increased his speed. Chinya wasn't a cruel and merciless person. What if she encountered those shameless bastards? Once his heart softened, it was very likely that he would be ambushed. In any case, the will of slaughter had no effect on him. It didn't matter even if he sped up. On the way, he saw several warriors of the Z family who had been knocked unconscious. It looked like Chinya had saved a few of them, but since these men had fainted, they were eliminated. There were still 17 men who were still conscious. At the same time, with his Tai Chi eye, Jiang Chen noticed a few men who were 300 meters away from him. Yu Hao, Meng Yu, and the rest of the 4th-level divine core warriors. Apart from Ling Xiao, this should be the last group of people to arrive. As for the 3rd-level divine core warriors, they had all been eliminated. Further ahead were Yu Zhen, Yu Qilong, Zilan, and Chinya who had just caught up with Jiang Chen. These men were about 800 meters away from Ling Xiao. Currently, Yu Hua was in the first place, about 1,000 meters away from Jiang Chen. That was the current situation. After noticing that Chinya was safe, Ling Xiao wasn't in a hurry anymore. He didn't want to catch up with Chinya so quickly. If he did, he would definitely be surrounded. It would be more comfortable for him to walk slowly behind them. Ling Xiao looked further into the distance. It was still flickering with blood-red light, but he couldn't see the end of the path. He even suspected that there might not be an end to this path. And Meng Yu stopped. Ling Xiao was startled for a second. Then he immediately understood what was going on. Meng Yu had always been an intelligent person. She felt that she couldn't hold on any longer, so she decided to stop. If she didn't, she might lose her mind and become a lunatic. It would be better for her to stay here and have a good rest. At least she would be able to stay alive. Furthermore, once the others went crazy or died because of the will of slaughter, she would be able to reap the benefits. Nice dream, but too bad. With your big brother here, I'm afraid you won't be able to do anything. Ling Xiao secretly laughed. He wasn't worried that Meng Yu would attack him. He wasn't affected by anything in this place, but Meng Yu wasn't. If Meng Yu really wanted to attack him, she would be courting death. Jiang Chen didn't mind taking someone's life. The rest of the men continued walking, while Meng Yu sat down and rested. Soon his choice was proven to be wise. Even the fourth-level divine core warriors went crazy one after another, and in the end they died. The remaining men were Yu Hua, Zi Qinya, Yu Zhen, Yu Qilong, Zilan, Yu Chang, Yu Hao Mengyu, Ziling, Ling Xiao, and Gao Hong and Zilong, who were hiding in the Mountain River realm. There were exactly 12 men. Of course, most of the other 18 men were dead, and a few of them had fainted. Perhaps there was still hope for them to survive. The man in the front was Yu Hua, and behind him was Zi Qinya. Both of them were in the first group. The second group was made up of a few fifth-level divine core warriors. As for the fourth-level divine core warriors, there were only 4 left. Perfect fourth-level divine core warriors Yu Chang and Mengyu, late divine core warrior Ziling, and early divine core warrior Yu Hao. This Yu Hao was an interesting man. He had pasted a few talismans on his body, and it seemed like they were specifically used to block the will of slaughter. This guy was also an intelligent person. Perhaps he had expected this before entering the tomb, and had prepared himself beforehand. How far is it? Yu Hua's eyes were blurred. Because he couldn't see the end, he couldn't see any hope. Right now, even he himself was on the verge of collapsing. This will of slaughter was too frightening. Zi Qinya was in a similar situation. Yu Zhen, Yu Qilong, and Zilan were in an even worse situation, and they were already crawling on the ground. They were crawling forward. A few men behind them were lying on the ground, unable to move any further. Right now, the will of slaughter was 6 times stronger than before. Yu Hao struggled to stand up. Then he turned around and looked behind him. I don't think I can get into the top 3. Even with these talismans, I still can't fight against that frightening will of slaughter. I might as well do something for the Yu family. His lips curled into a cold smile. Chapter 3762. Yu Hao clearly remembered that Ling Xiao was walking behind him. He wondered if he was still alive, but he decided to go back and take a look. After all, the further he walked, the easier it would be. After experiencing the terrifying killing intent that was 6 times stronger, 1, 2, or even 3 or 4 times stronger was nothing. Looking at Yu Hao walking towards the back, all the other 4th Divine Core Warriors were surprised by his actions. But they couldn't care less. Right now, they didn't want to move anymore. They just wanted to lie down and rest. They didn't want to continue walking forward or backward. Just as Yu Hao had expected, it was extremely difficult for him to walk forward. But the further he walked, the easier it became. Although this place looked dangerous, it was also the best place to train one's soul. He could feel that his soul had become much stronger. Zi Qinya. Oh, Zi Qinya. Don't even think about getting anything. The first place belongs to the Patriarch, the second place belongs to Yu Zhen, and the third place belongs to Brother Qilong. All the good things belong to the Yu family. As long as I kill that little bastard Ling Xiao, I'll announce his death to the public. I believe that with your mental endurance, you'll collapse in an instant and be invaded by the killing intent. At that time, what are you going to use to fight with the Yu family? As for Zilan, Yu Hao didn't care about her at all. If Yu Hua wanted to, he could take Zilan's life in an instant. You can only blame yourself. You shouldn't have let Brother Qilong down. You shouldn't have ruined my plan for the Yu family. The Z family is destined to fail. It's destined to be destroyed. Yu Hao was a man who wholeheartedly thought for the Yu family. Therefore, what he needed to do now was to get rid of the biggest problem for the Yu family. As long as Ling Xiao was dead, the Yu family would definitely gain the upper hand in this fight. The blood supremacy armor would be his as well. Why wouldn't he do it? Yu Hao walked faster and faster. Although he felt a lot more relaxed now, he could still feel the pressure. He had to use at least 40% of his strength to fight against the killing intent. One had to know that he had used up 100% of his strength to fight against the will of slaughter. Now he was thankful that he only needed to use 40% of his strength. He estimated that Ling Xiao was either dead or at the starting point. At that point, he might only need 10% of his strength to fight against the killing intent. As he walked, Yu Hao suddenly stopped as he saw Meng Yu sitting on the ground. A hint of nervousness appeared on his face. Meng Yu was stronger than him. Furthermore, Meng Yu had been resting here all this time. If the two of them were to clash, he would definitely lose. Don't bother about her. Yu Hao thought for a while and then walked back quickly without even looking at Meng Yu. Meng Yu naturally saw Yu Hao, but she was too lazy to make a move. Those who went back were not her enemies. Only those who went forward were. The two of them tacitly agreed not to do anything. However, Meng Yu was thinking, why is Yu Hao going back? Could it be that he was targeting Ling Xiao? Interesting, I have to go take a look. If I can, I'll take this opportunity to kill these two fellows. Then, the Blood Supreme armor will be mine. Thinking of this, Meng Yu stood up and was about to set off. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. Someone was coming from the direction of the starting point. Who is it? Could it be Ling Xiao? After what happened in the evil ghost labyrinth, Meng Yu no longer dared to underestimate Ling Xiao. However, Yu Hao was still shocked. When he saw Ling Xiao's figure, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He jumped in fright. Impossible, that guy is just a peak second Heavenly Core Warrior. Even a fourth Heavenly Core Warrior would have a hard time surviving here. Why does he look so relaxed? Yu Hao's mind was in a mess, and he felt like he was confused. Could it be that I'm hallucinating? He pinched himself hard and it hurt a lot. Therefore, he was sure that he wasn't hallucinating. This was going to be troublesome. In this place, he could only use 60% of his strength. In other words, he could only unleash the strength of a late third Heavenly Core Warrior. If he really wanted to fight, he was worried that an accident might happen. If they were at the starting point, he would be able to fight without any worries. But in this place, he was really hesitant. I'll take the risk. I still have a talisman that can reduce 20% of my strength. With that, I can use 80% of my strength. I'm very close to the fourth Heavenly Core Realm. Yu Hao gritted his teeth. He didn't want to give up on this opportunity. If he gave up now, he wouldn't have another chance. Ling Xiao looked at Yu Hao with a faint smile on his face. Another idiot who wanted to die. How dare he attack him in this place? Actually, he had noticed Yu Hao's arrival. That's why he quickened his pace. The more slaughter intent Yu Hao had to endure, the greater his chance of winning would be. He didn't even need to unleash his sky Tyrant martial soul. Yo, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this Major General Yu Hao? Why? Did you come all the way here to pick me up? Ling Xiao looked at Yu Hao with a smile on his face. He had already transformed into his peerless, heavenly, rat-beast soul. Although Yu Hao was affected by the slaughter intent, he was still a mighty warrior. Yu Hao wouldn't dare underestimate him. Meng Yu stood far away without moving. Before she knew what was going on, she wouldn't attack anyone recklessly. It would be best if both Yu Hao and Ling Xiao were severely injured. Then she would be able to take advantage of the situation. Pick you up? You're thinking too much. I want you dead. Yu Hao looked at Ling Xiao with a cold smile. He didn't understand why Ling Xiao looked so relaxed. He could only conclude that Yu Hao knew how to pretend. If you want to kill me, you'd better think it through. This is a tunnel filled with slaughter intent. You can't unleash your full strength. If we were outside, I'm not your match. But here, you'll probably die. Ling Xiao said with a smile. His words strengthened Yu Hao's determination to kill him, because Yu Hao thought that Yu Hao was bluffing. Otherwise, why would an enemy tell his opponent something like this? But he didn't expect that Ling Xiao was deliberately baiting him to attack. Since he met Yu Hao here, Ling Xiao didn't plan on letting Yu Hao go. Yu Hao was considered Yu Qilong's military advisor and accomplice. Basically, the things that Yu Qilong had done were all related to this guy. If this guy didn't die, the heavens wouldn't tolerate it. Bluffing brat, you're no match for me. Die. Yu Hao didn't want to waste any more time. He suddenly pulled out a sword and released his powerful sword martial soul. Then he charged at Ling Xiao. Are you in a hurry to die? Ling Xiao smiled and took out the first blood sun world. Then he stabbed out with his sword. On the sword, a terrifying slaughter intent bloomed. When it merged with the slaughter intent in this space, the slaughter intent increased by 5 times. In that instant, Yu Hao felt that it was difficult to breathe. There's something wrong with that brat. The slaughter intent doesn't seem to hurt him. Instead, it's being used by him. Meng Yu rejoiced that she didn't act rashly. Chapter 3763 / Both men thrust their swords at each other at the same time, but they didn't use any martial skills, because if they used any martial skills in this tunnel, they would attract an even more frightening slaughter intent. Not only Yu Hao couldn't withstand the impact, even Ling Xiao couldn't withstand it. He could slowly absorb the slaughter intent, just like how a river flowed into a stream. However, once the stream turned into a terrifying flood and poured down in torrents, the embankment would definitely be washed away. Therefore, the battle between these two men looked a little funny. It looked like a battle between two ordinary men, but there was a difference. They could use their true yuan to strengthen their ordinary attacks. The moment the two men made contact with each other, Ling Xiao guided the frightening slaughter intent and smashed it toward Yu Hao. Yu Hao was in a state of confusion, something that shouldn't have happened. He was actually dashing toward another direction. Ling Xiao took this opportunity to stab out with his sword, directly piercing into Yu Hao's ribs. Blood splashed out from the wound and splattered on the ground. A frightening pain came from his body, and it woke Yu Hao up from his confusion. He quickly ran away from the scene. He stared at Ling Xiao in fear. He had miscalculated. Although the blood had stopped flowing out due to his powerful body, and his wounds were slowly healing. However, the injury this time had really frightened him. It was like he was facing a rabbit, but the rabbit had suddenly turned into a ferocious lion. He was caught off guard. Meng Yu was shocked as well. Yu Hao didn't manage to hurt Ling Xiao. Instead, he was stabbed by Ling Xiao. This was really strange. What's going on? He's just a peak second divine core warrior, facing such a frightening slaughter intent. He shouldn't even be able to stand properly. How can he still attack as if nothing has happened? And he can even guide the slaughter intent? Yu Hao was really starting to panic. He began to doubt the wisdom of his decision this time. As for Meng Yu, she was secretly glad that she didn't target Ling Xiao, or else she would be the one who was shocked right now. How can you be completely unaffected? Is the slaughter intent ineffective on you? Yu Hao asked while backing off. At this moment, he was retreating in the direction of the starting point. He didn't dare to walk forward because the further he went, the greater his disadvantage would be. Ling Xiao was obviously not affected by the slaughter will, or rather, he was only slightly affected. He could only unleash his true strength when he went to a place where the will to kill was weaker. Otherwise, they could only be killed. Trying to escape? Ling Xiao wouldn't let Yu Hao off so easily. Since Yu Hao had already made a move on him, he absolutely would not show mercy. Yu Hao rushed toward the starting point. He took out the Arcanum Bow. Then he knocked a frost arrow and shot it out. Although this Arcanum Bow was only a divine grade Emperor artifact, it was inferior to a Heavenly King artifact, like the first Blood Sun world. However, it was still a weapon commonly used by warriors below the 4th level of the Divine Core Realm. After all, there were too few people who possessed a Heavenly King artifact. Yu Hao sensed danger approaching and hurriedly dodged. However, the frost arrow still pierced into his right leg. The power of ice instantly froze Yu Hao. Ling Xiao put away the profound theory bow and rushed over. He wanted to take Yu Hao's life. With the first Blood Sun world in his hand, he thrust it toward Yu Hao's throat. But right at this moment, Yu Hao was finally freed from the ice. Immediately, he activated the defensive talisman. The First Blood Sun world couldn't pierce through the defensive talisman's energy barrier. Since Ling Xiao couldn't use any martial skills right now, the strength of his attack was greatly reduced. Let's see how many defensive talismans you have. Ling Xiao sneered. He kept thrusting the First Blood Sun world forward. Yu Hao could only desperately defend himself. He couldn't fight back at all. Before he made his move, Yu Hao probably never imagined that things would turn out this way. He was being suppressed by Ling Xiao. This was a great humiliation. A great humiliation. Meng Yu, who was watching from afar, was dumbfounded by what she saw. Ling Xiao, a peak 2nd Divine Core Warrior, was actually suppressing Yu Hao, an early 4th Divine Core Warrior. The main reason for this was that Yu Hao's strength had been greatly reduced due to the special environment. However, the fact that Ling Xiao was not affected by this was already something that left everyone dumbfounded. Right at this moment, Meng Yu saw a figure dashing past him. He couldn't see who it was, but the man was moving at an incredible speed. When he finally saw who it was, Ling Xiao had been stabbed by the sword. His body was sent flying away, and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. I was worried. That's why I followed you here. I didn't expect this to happen. Yu Hao, you're really useless. The man standing in front of Meng Yu was a peak 4th Divine Core Warrior, Yu Chong. Yu Chong was also affected by the will of slaughter, and he could only unleash the strength of an early 4th Divine Core Warrior. But his sneak attack was crucial. Although the sword didn't manage to penetrate Ling Xiao's terrifying defense, it still did. But it did injure Ling Xiao. What do you know? This guy isn't controlled by the will of slaughter. I miscalculated. Yu Hao was unconvinced. Hearing this, Yu Chong furrowed his brows. Not controlled by the will of slaughter? How is this possible? He had never heard of something like this before. How could there be such a frightening guy in this world? I'm really lucky I'm being targeted by 2 4th Divine Core Warriors from the Yu family. Ling Xiao wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth and stood up from the ground. His injuries weren't serious. After all, Yu Chong could only use ordinary attacks. Since you're here, both of you can die here together. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled into a cruel sneer. Are you joking? Too bad, this isn't funny at all. Do you really think you can defeat both of us by yourself? Yu Chong looked at Ling Xiao with disdain and said, Even if you're not affected by the will of slaughter, both of us can kill you 100 times over. Meng Yu agreed with what Yu Chong said. If it was just Yu Hao or Yu Chong, Ling Xiao might be able to defeat both of them. But it was different with both of them. Bullshit, if I couldn't do it, I would have run away long ago. Dragon Trapping Talisman. After Zi Long hid in the Mountain River realm, he gave his talisman to Ling Xiao. Now it came in handy. The effect of the Dragon Trapping Talisman was similar to the Martial Soul Barrier, but it didn't consume any soul energy. It only consumed a small amount of true yuan. It was the best talisman to use in this kind of situation. Besides, the Dragon Trapping Talisman was better than the Martial Soul Barrier. Are you crazy? How dare you trap both of us here? Do you really want to fight both of us at once? Yu Chong furrowed his brows. So what? Ling Xiao sneered. Then he unleashed the martial soul of Tyrant. Although his opponents were much weaker now, they were still very strong. He had to fight with all his strength. Right when the martial soul of Tyrant appeared, the terrifying will of slaughter increased by 6 times. It had reached the highest level of will of slaughter in this tunnel. Yu Chong immediately kneeled down on the ground. Yu Hao was in an even worse state, as he was already severely injured. Together with the pressure from the will of slaughter, his entire body felt weak. Chapter 3764. What's going on? How can you control the slaughter will? Yu Chong trembled in fear. Do you want to know? Ling Xiao revealed a playful smile and said, "I'm not telling you." He held the sword in his hand and slowly walked towards Yu Hao and Yu Chang. Almost every step made Yu Hao and Yu Chang feel terrified, as if the god of death was approaching them. "Wait, wait," Yu Chang shouted. "As long as you don't kill us, we'll do anything." "Do I really have to do anything?" Ling Xiao laughed. Of course. Yu Chang nodded. "Okay, then you kill Yu Hao and destroy your own cultivation, and I'll spare your life." Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Yu Chang glanced at Yu Hao and seemed to hesitate, but then he gritted his teeth and used all his strength to stab the sword in his hand into Yu Hao's body. "You're really going to kill him?" Ling Xiao shook his head and said, "People like you will even kill your own people. How can I be assured that you won't come to me for revenge?" "You can't go back on your words," Yu Chang roared. "Don't worry, I'll definitely keep my words. You should destroy your cultivation, right?" Ling Xiao said, "As long as you destroy your cultivation now, I'll definitely not kill you." Okay, it was better to live than to die. Although Yu Chang understood that once his cultivation was destroyed, his career as a martial artist would probably come to an end. But being an ordinary person, he could still eat and drink well. It was better than dying. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and destroyed his meridians and inner core, becoming an ordinary person from now on, a martial arts cripple. "I've done as you said. Can you let me go?" Yu Chang looked at Ling Xiao and said, "Of course, no." Ling Xiao mocked. "I only said that I won't kill you, but I didn't say that I'll let you go. You're shameless, despicable." Yu Chang seemed to have thought of a terrible ending and roared, "Scold me however you like." Ling Xiao looked at Yu Chang with disdain. He immediately withdrew his tyrant martial spirit and removed the effect of the dragon trapping talisman. He looked at Meng Yu and said, "Come and kill him." "Why should I listen to you?" Meng Yu frowned. "If you don't listen to me, I'll kill you." Ling Xiao's attitude was very cold. This Meng Yu wanted to kill him before, so he wanted to drag this woman down with him. As for why he didn't kill Meng Yu, it wasn't that he didn't want to, but he couldn't do it for the time being. Dealing with Yu Chang and Yu Hao, he had consumed a lot of energy. Even though they didn't do much, they were actually in a special situation. Basically, all of his energy was used to convert the slaughter will and murderous aura. On the surface, it looked like there was no consumption, but it was just a show for others to see. "All right, I'll kill him." When Meng Yu saw the tragic state of Yu Chang and Yu Hao, he no longer had the will to resist. As long as she didn't die, she would be satisfied. Why would she think so much? Since the Yu family and Z family were enemies, killing Yu Chang wasn't a big deal. With this thought in mind, she stood up and walked in front of Yu Chang. Then she thrust her sword into his throat. Even before Yu Chang died, he couldn't believe this was his end. He had actually been tricked by a second-rank divine core warrior. He died with his eyes wide open. Not bad, nicely done. Ling Xiao looked at Meng Yu with an indifferent expression. Then he continued, walking forward. Meng Yu fell to the ground and let out a long sigh of relief. To be honest, she was really afraid that she would be stabbed to death by Ling Xiao at that moment. She really didn't have the strength to fight back. Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't care about her. He directly swallowed a medicinal pill and continued walking forward. They walked for another 10 minutes or so. Finally, they could see the end of the tunnel. Right at this moment, Yu Hua was sitting on the ground. Zi Qinya was sitting near him. Both of them were resting. They didn't have the Tai Chi eye, so they couldn't see the end. Also, the terrifying murderous aura and slaughter were getting stronger and stronger, forcing them to squat down and rest. After that, they continued walking. "This is my chance." Ling Xiao smiled. Not only did he not slow down, he actually sped up. He was determined to get the first place. After all, the reward for the first place was 10 million high-ranked soul stones, a spiritual rank heavenly king weapon, and a 7th order emperor martial skill. How could he resist such a great temptation? He could give up the supremacy armor and give it to Ziqinya, but he was determined to get all these things. Compared to the first round, he was more confident in the second round. Along the way, he met Ziling, a female warrior from the Z family. Seeing Ling Zhao's leisurely stroll, the woman was dumbfounded. Isn't that guy a second heavenly core warrior? I thought he was dead or crazy, but why is he walking so casually? Even Yu Hua and Ziqinya, who are both at the 6th heavenly core realm, couldn't walk as casually as him. What the hell? What kind of monster is this guy? Ziling had never taken Ling Xiao seriously. When she was in the star-picking pavilion in Ziling's capital city, her impression of Ling Xiao was that he was good at talking. But his strength was a complete mess. In the first round, she thought it was Ziqinya who helped Ling Xiao obtain the supremacy armor. But in the second round, Ziqinya wasn't with Ling Xiao, so why was he able to walk so casually? Do you need my help? When Ling Xiao walked past Ziling, he threw a glance at her and asked with a smile. Of course, he didn't really want to help, he was just mocking her. Ziling lowered her head in shame. She could only watch Ling Xiao continue walking. Oh, right. Let me give you a warning. Don't make Ziqinya and Zilong your enemy. Or else, Yu Hao and Yu Chong will be your examples. After saying that, Ling Zhao's figure had already disappeared into the tunnel. Did he just say Yu Hao and Yu Chong? Are the two of them dead? Ziling hurriedly took out her crystal ball to check. Their heads were gray, and there was a blood-red X on them. They were indeed dead. What kind of monster is this guy? Ziling felt her whole body trembling. Of course, Ling Xiao didn't care about what she was thinking. At this moment, he met someone. This person was Yu Qilong. Yu Qilong's cultivation was weaker than Zilong and Yu Zhen's, so he fell behind. Ling Xiao noticed that Yu Qilong's situation was very bad, and he was obviously fighting against the massacre will. Although he wasn't controlled, he was very weak. If possible, Ling Xiao really wanted to kill Yu Qilong, but he didn't move. At this point, the massacre will was too strong. Even if he had the Sky Tyrant martial soul, he had to be careful. Otherwise, if he fell into an illusion and couldn't extricate himself, he would be finished. At this time, the best thing to do was to ignore everyone and walk forward steadily. But he couldn't attack, he could still talk. Chapter 3765. A grin emerged on Ling Zhao's face. When he walked past Yu Qilong, he lowered his voice and said, Yu Qilong, that poor Yu Hao wanted to kill me for you. But in the end, he died. Don't you feel guilty about this? Yu Qilong's body trembled. It was as if he had just seen a ghost. He suddenly opened his eyes, and they had turned blood red. No. You're lying, you're lying. Yu Qilong furiously roared. Hee, not only did I kill Yu Hao, I also killed Yu Chong. Oh, right. I'm going to take the top 3 places in the second round. The Yu family won't get anything. Don't even think about it. Ling Xiao sneered and continued to walk forward without stopping for a moment. As for whether his words would work or not, he didn't really care. It was enough to make Yu Qilong depressed. Puff! After taking a few steps, Yu Qilong suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Yu Qilong wanted to rest for a while, then continue walking and fight for the 3rd place. But in the end, this was the result. He hated Ling Xiao to the core, but there was nothing he could do. Perhaps fainting was a good thing for him. Ling Xiao shook his head and continued walking. Right now, beads of sweat could be seen on his forehead. The pressure he was under was getting stronger and stronger. The closer he got to the center, the stronger the killing intent became. It was so strong that it could even hurt his skin. Although the martial soul of Tyrant was heaven-defying, his cultivation base was still too low. Naturally, he couldn't completely resist and devour the killing intent. There was a limit to how much water a river could contain. After walking for a while, 2 men appeared in front of him. Yu Zhen and Zilan. Both of them were peak 5th level divine core warriors. Zilan had broken through before entering the burial grounds. Because of the killing intent, her cultivation base, which had stagnated for over 40 years, had finally broken through. But since she had just broken through, she was still weaker than Yu Zhen, who was an experienced peak 5th level divine core warrior. Although both men couldn't walk anymore, they were still walking. Both of them stopped to rest. But obviously Yu Zhen had it easier. His recovery speed was faster as well. Right now, both men's faces were as pale as a sheet of paper. Their bodies were completely soaked with sweat. If Violet Blue wanted to get 3rd place, it had to at least get 3rd place. But she really couldn't take it anymore. Whether it was strength or experience, Yu Zhen was more than her. She didn't want to go berserk because of the will of slaughter. Therefore, he had already given up. Yu Zhen didn't want to leave either. Because he was already in 3rd place, this already made him very satisfied. If he continued to take the risk, not only would he not be able to obtain anything, he would also be digging his own grave. He wasn't that stupid. The two of them were like people who had been lost in the desert for days. He was extremely weak. Everything was blurry. Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps. Moreover, these footsteps were sonorous and powerful. They turned their heads to look and vaguely saw a person's figure, but he couldn't see clearly who it was. Qilong. Yu Zhen took a deep breath. He was a little surprised. Yu Qilong's cultivation was much lower than his, but he was still able to make it this far. She didn't care who it was. In any case, she was not fated to be in the top 3. Whether it was Yu Zhen or Yu Qilong who took it, it was the Yu family who took it. She could only watch the show. As for fighting, stop joking. Unless he wanted to die, he wouldn't fight here. We are still 300 meters away from Yu Hua and Zi Qinya. Ling Xiao's face was also a little pale. He frowned. Countless illusions rushed into his mind. They were desperately trying to interfere with his progress. My good grandson. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. It was his grandfather, Hong Qi. He missed his grandfather too much. Since the last time they parted, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He was very worried about his grandfather's safety. This illusion was really pervasive. Grandfather, why are you here? Ling Xiao asked in surprise. He didn't realize that he had entered an illusion. Grandfather has been trapped here for a long time. Hurry up and save him. Okay. Ling Xiao walked in the direction of Hong Qi. Suddenly, a cold aura surged out of his body. An ice frost divine dragon circled and danced behind him. Ling Xiao instantly woke up from the illusion. Only then did he realize that he had reached the edge of the tunnel. The tunnel here was different from before. There were actually bottomless abysses on both sides. If he fell, he would probably die without a complete corpse. It was the ice frost divine dragon beast soul that saved him. It was really dangerous. He gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. Master! Suddenly a voice sounded. Ling Xiao would never forget this voice. It was Cold Plum's voice. It was the voice of the most loyal girl who had been following him from the Sky Dragon continent. He shuddered. No, this is an illusion. Cold Plum can't be here. Ling Xiao shook his head. However, he suddenly realized that everything around him was so real. The tunnel was still a real tunnel. The bottomless abysses on both sides were also very clear. More importantly, the ice frost divine dragon beast soul behind him was still there. Is it not an illusion? Ling Xiao was a little confused. Master, what's wrong with you? Didn't we enter the bone burial ground together? Cold Plum was standing beside Ling Xiao. You're an illusion, not real. Ling Xiao shook his head. Master, what are you talking about? I'm really Cold Plum. Touch me if you don't believe me. Cold Plum reached out her hand to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and reached out to touch her. As expected, He felt the same as a real person. But it still wasn't right. Cold Plum had clearly gone to the savage beast region. How could she be here? It must be fake. Ling Xiao shook his head hard. Master, don't you want Cold Plum anymore? Cold Plum said as she walked towards the bottomless abyss. Ling Xiao instinctively reached out to grab her. At this moment, a bloody killing intent grew from the depths of his heart. He stabbed out with his sword and pierced Cold Plum's throat. Cold Plum's body softened and fell to the ground. The illusion disappeared. It's still an illusion after all. That's enough. Although it was an illusion, the feeling of killing Cold Plum with his own hands was still heart-wrenching. He stood there, hesitating whether to continue forward. Although illusions couldn't hurt people, they could hurt people's hearts. Let's try channeling the Blood Sun Sutra. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao first sat down cross-legged and channeled the Blood Sun Sutra. The power of the Blood Sun Sutra filled his body. When he looked around again, although the huge pressure was still there, his mind seemed to have become much clearer. Why didn't I think of it before? Since the Blood Sun Sutra is the key to opening the bone burial ground, then it must be able to resist the killing intent. Ling Xiao shook his head and scolded himself for being an idiot. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. He was too relaxed before and didn't think too much. Now that he had 2 fatal hallucinations, he suddenly remembered. This was normal. Chapter 3766. Unknowingly, Ling Xiao had walked past Zilan and Yu Zhen. This time he didn't even bother to speak. After experiencing the illusion just now, he became more cautious. Although he had the help of the Sky Tyrant martial soul and all sorts of beast souls, he had made it this far by relying on his strong willpower. But Ling Xiao didn't want to stop here. He wanted to be number 1, not number 3. Right now, he was about 300 meters away from Yu Hua and Ziqinya. But every step he took wasn't easy. The further he went, the greater the pressure. But so what? He wasn't going to give up so easily. None of the people here had as much experience as he did. Although he was still young, he had traveled from the heavenly dragon continent to the black tortoise continent. His experience was much richer than Yu Hua and Ziqinya. Therefore, his willpower was much stronger than before. Furthermore, Long Chen, Cold Plum, Xiaojin, his grandfather, Hongqi, his parents, his sister in this life, the Divine Codex, and his beloved sister. You knew they were all waiting for him. How could he fall here? He had to be strong. It's 300 meters from here to where Yu Hua is and 700 meters to the finish line. Just bear with it for a while. Gritting his teeth, Ling Xiao continued walking. Zilan was startled when she saw Ling Xiao's back. Not you, Qilong? Why does this guy look so much like Ziqinya's sworn brother? That brat who spoke so rudely? Impossible, my consciousness must be blurred and I'm imagining things. Zilan shook her head. A bitter smile emerged on her face. She quickly closed her eyes and continued resisting the will of slaughter. She couldn't believe that Ling Xiao, a second-rank divine core warrior, could reach this place. This was ridiculous. After that, Yu Zhen saw Ling Xiao's back as well. This illusion is ridiculous. Why am I seeing that brat? Is it because I want to kill him so badly? Yu Zhen had the same thought as Zilan. They both thought they were hallucinating. Therefore, he didn't move at all. That was because he knew how terrifying illusions were. Once he followed them, it was very likely that he would fall into the bottomless abyss and lose his life. Although that back view was so real, his footsteps were sonorous and powerful, but they still didn't believe it. What was Ling Xiao's cultivation level? Second stage divine core warrior. Moreover, the two of them did not witness how Ling Xiao obtained the Blood Supreme armor in the first round. Therefore, they all felt that Ziqinya had helped Ling Xiao. Therefore, they were not particularly clear about Ling Xiao's abilities. Ling Xiao's figure disappeared from their sight. Although their eyesight was very good, There was a murderous aura in the air, and the air was hazy with blood. They could only see things 20 meters away. He couldn't see it any further. The illusion is gone. The two closed their eyes again and continued to regulate their breathing. Originally, he wanted to adjust his breathing and continue moving forward. Unfortunately, once he sat down, it seemed that he could not stand up again. Ling Xiao didn't know what they were thinking. Right now, he was very close to Yu Hua and Ziqinya. Although Yu Hua and Ziqinya were much stronger than Zilan and Yu Zhen. But where they were, the murderous intent and murderous aura were much stronger. Therefore, their performance wasn't much better than the other two. Damn it, if I was walking against a Force 8 gale before, now I'm walking against a Force 8 gale. But now, I'm walking against a Force 12 gale. I'm still 400 meters away from the end. Will it turn into a Force 16 typhoon? And a typhoon formed by murderous aura and murderous intent. Ling Xiao stood there and panted for a long time before he continued, moving forward. The pressure was even greater than before. Every step he took was simply deadly. He had no choice but to transform into the peerless, heavenly rat beast soul. He also unleashed his innate fiend god sword soul and a beast soul that could increase his strength. He even used the talisman he got from Yu Hao's storage ring. Only then did he feel a little more relaxed. But still, he had to stop every 10 steps. No wonder Yu Hua and Ziqinya couldn't reach the end. The Sun Divine Beast Soul became even more excited. It was as if there was something in the end that was attracting it. This made it very happy. It seems that I made the right choice. The Sun Divine Beast Soul had a reaction when I was in the palace. Now the reaction is even stronger. Because of this desire, this made Ling Xiao even more excited. When he was near Ziqinya, Ling Xiao could already see the scenery 400 meters away. There was a huge throne there. On the throne, there was a human skeleton. A terrifying blood-red light was emitted from the bones. Needless to say, this human skeleton should belong to the Blood Sword Supreme. An expert was an expert. Even if only a skeleton was left, it could still make people tremble. This skeleton was wearing armor. It was glowing with a blood-red light, and there were incantations flashing on it. It was covered with dense rays. Needless to say, this should be the Blood Sword Supreme's armor. The skeleton sat there with a golden sword. It didn't look like it was dead at all. He held the blood-red sword in his hand and stabbed it into the ground. That was a spiritual heavenly king artifact blood sword. Its appearance was somewhat similar to Blood Sun World, but in fact, it was much more outstanding than the first Blood Sun World. And this was just a skeleton, and it was still 400 meters away from him. He didn't know how terrifying the Blood Sword Supreme's murderous aura would be. Would he have fainted from the shock? What the Sun God Beast Soul is interested in should be the skeleton. But what's so good about the skeleton? Ling Xiao frowned. He didn't understand. But it didn't matter whether he understood it or not. At this moment, he had already walked here. Naturally, he couldn't stop. Even if he had to crawl, he had to crawl. At this moment, Ziqinya and Yu Hua both noticed Ling Xiao's arrival. In terms of condition, they were much better than Yu Zhen and Zilan. So when they saw Ling Xiao within 20 meters of them, they could already confirm who it was. Even so, Ziqinya was overjoyed. "I've been waiting for you, but I didn't expect you to come. You really didn't disappoint me." She thought that Ling Xiao would be able to reach this place, but that was just her thought. I don't have any confidence in my heart. Until this moment, when she saw Ling Xiao, she was sure that it wasn't an illusion. She heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. At the same time, she was filled with joy. Ling Xiao, this fellow, was really capable of bringing surprises to people. What others couldn't do, he was able to do. It was simply too shocking. As for Yu Hua, he was already dumbfounded out of fear. Even though he was a 6th Divine Core Warrior, he was still a 6th Divine Core Warrior. But when he saw Ling Xiao coming here, he was still shocked. He knew that his sons Yu Qilong, Yu Chang, and Yu Hao were all plotting against Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao had survived, but what about his sons? This monster was too terrifying. He wasn't human. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.